Live tonight. Does debating make us smarter? Architects of Humanity, maxed out. Yeah, man. I see a lot of people debating, and it has created a type of mental disease in people where they cannot have conversations anymore. Opposing thoughts can't be thought out. It's always debate. It's always, oh, do you want to battle, basically? And we've seen this ushered in with the rap music genre. But if we look back at the etymology of debate, which a lot of people don't do that, especially people that believe in the lie of evolution, they will not look into they will not look into any type of historical context on how their religion was created. Even deity-based religions, they'll just believe what's there. Nobody could have changed the lettering or maybe added something in, took something out. We've seen that definitely happen in the textbooks of the evolution religion. And then they'll say, well, I would like to debate you on this. They want to debate somebody on that. And this is why I made the childish looking thumbnail. Mr. X, good to see you, man. He says, I believe debating makes us smarter with the right people. I'll challenge that in a moment. And good day. Good to see you, Mark. Debating, the reason that it's a childish, immature form of engaging with each other is because of the definition of the word. This is why I made the thumbnail. Does debating make us smarter? No, it actually doesn't. It makes us more childish. It makes us more arrogant, more prone to argument. When people say you're presenting your argument, no, you present evidence and then you conversate about it. And that's how you move forward like thinking, mature adults. The childlike mind is the one that debates, the mind that is held in a state of perpetual immaturity. That's what they do because they don't know any better. They've been taught this by immature adults, an immature society that's designed to keep them in that perpetual state of immaturity. So when we look at the origin of the word debate, we see that it goes back, traces its roots back, it goes back much older than the 13th century, but let's just go to Old French, right? Débattre. So débattre, which originally meant to fight, to beat down, to contend. So it's in the wording itself. Mr. X, what's up, bro? Welcome to the
Good to see you. Good to see it. I'm waiting for your challenge here. I'm waiting for your challenge. Let's do it. Let's debate.
Yeah. Well, really, we're having a conversation about it because if we were to debate, it's like the origin of the word. We would fight. We would beat each other down.
Okay, I guess I have a different interpretation of debate then. Because I feel like our conversation, if we don't come, if we're not in agreement, it's somewhat of a debate, but it's a more, I don't know how to say it, but it's more polite. It's more no ad hominem attacks. It's just, it's a difference of opinion, and we can express our differences without
With the
attacking.
conversation, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a debate then.
Okay. Well, I guess I have a different definition of debate than I would have. I guess.
Well, think about it. There's not a different definition, right? Because remember what we talked about on the other one when ethics try to squeeze away from agnostics, saying, well, it means many things. And I was like, no, it doesn't. It means to not know. Gnosis is to know. Gnostic is to know. And agnostic is not to know, not knowing.
Right.
And then he brought in, oh, well, it goes back to the ancient Greeks because but we both know evolution is based on racism. So they think that the first civilization is Greek, the white civilization. It can't be Egypt, it can't be India, it has to be Greece. But then
that's not even accurate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's just common knowledge. It's, I mean, we know of, and I'm not saying
Well,
something
it's
didn't
not
exist
common.
before, was a Sumeria.
Yeah, it's
Or,
not. Well, they'll bring that up. They'll bring that up. You notice how Sumer isn't even the oldest.
right. It's
There's
just
stuff.
non-European is all I'm saying. It didn't start
Yeah.
in Europe. That's common knowledge. So that's not
Well,
even subject to debate. You know what I mean?
well, they'll bring in that the reason that that came up, and this is the mental affliction that a lot of
Hmm.
people with evolution have is that Greece was the first civilization. Even though they'll call Sumer a civilization, they won't look at them as advanced. No matter all of this advanced stuff that we can find there,
That's not
they'll-
based on truth, though. That's a bias.
exactly,
We
and
have
that's
the
what.
evidence to show that it's true. We have the artifacts. We have everything.
Well, also remember, evolution is based on bias, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So,
100%.
yeah,
100% agree.
so now it makes sense because we're not looking to admonish the guy. I mean, he's a cool dude. We're saying,
Absolutely.
why would he say that? Because he said that. That's on the stream, you know? And
Hmm.
that's the beautiful thing about these streams. We can always rewind and look at them. And with him saying that, one, oh, he's agnostic, but it means different things. This is why we can't say your definition of debate. It's like, no, debate
Hmm.
means to beat down, to fight, to argue. And when people they fall into the state of mind when they'll say, oh, well, present your argument or the
Right.
argument you're presenting, that is the immature mind. The
Hmm.
mature mind will say, present your evidence. So now we see a whole different vibe come to the conversation.
Hmm.
And then we can have a peaceful conversation, like you said, without
Right.
ad hominems and all of that. So definitively, using the definition of the word, we can say this is a conversation. We're presenting different points of view
Hmm.
with evidence, and we're learning. To debate is to beat somebody down, to fight with them verbally, and to try to win an argument, which even if somebody were to win an argument, the loudest person shouting couldn't win an argument. The
No.
person that gets the crowd, that's why I put all of the people in the background sitting in high chairs, like immature babies that are sucking pacifiers, shaking their baby rattles, picking their nose, sucking bottles. And this is what we see in the audience of debates.
Yeah.
We see that. So we have to be very careful. Like we know the words are very important, very important. We
Hmm.
can't expect these people to become mature and let us know. We already see they're constantly coming. Evolution is just they want to debate. Religion wants to debate because it's you have to be in an immature frame of mind to believe those two things.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. And I think the problem with I see at a lot of debates is people come into the debate already with a bias. So no matter what evidence is presented that goes against their belief system, they're just not going to accept it because they have a pre bias, no matter how much good
Yeah,
evidence you can come up with. And that's not really productive. That's not intelligent. That
exactly.
there's no what I like in a good debate is a back and forth. I mean, we use the term arguments, but it's
Well, a good
basically
conversation would be the problem.
okay, good conversation. Yeah, because then we can come to a conclusion, and what I want is open-mindedness. That's all I ask for. I'm not
Yeah.
asking for anybody to accept my belief system.
Well,
It's just have an open mind.
yeah, exactly. But it's not even with the acceptance of it because you can present the evidence and they
Mhm.
could not accept it. But with the conversation, there is like there is no how you're saying, and you brought up a very good point. With the debate, you're not trying to learn. The person is going to ignore evidence and they're going to look for ways to hit ad hominems. They're going to say, well, I know more than you, implying that knowing more than somebody it can prove a point in some way, which we see that that's not always correct.
Hmm.
So it's all about winning instead of learning.
Okay, and then that aspect, I definitely would agree. I definitely
So
agree.
now we see that, right? And even if we're agreeing with the evidence, so somebody says, well, if they try to say from the outside, well, you guys are just agreeing with each other. No, we're agreeing with the evidence. We presented the evidence, we
Right.
looked at it, and we said, yeah, that's true. You don't learn. It's all about winning and losing, staying in an immature frame of mind without ever learning. And this is why I try to have these conversations instead of somebody bringing in the debate word or the argument.
I guess I
Mark,
was looking at more a debate as a conversation. I just had a misinterpretation of it.
yeah, exactly. Well, we all do that. This is why I always say the words are so important, and we always fall back into it because we got the zombies always
Yeah.
bringing it up. Oh, it was a debate. It was this. It's like, well, I don't watch debates. Mark has a good point here. He says, I agree, watching debates can often feel like two or more people trying to one up each other. It's like, it's a circle jerk, man. It is totally internet debates, particularly. And that's all they push. All they push. You'll see these guys in suits and with status, and all they are is just high profile idiots. And this is not an insult. This is a description, as we know. Christopher, good to see you, brother. He says, most people only listen to reply. They don't listen to understand. That is an excellent point.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, very good point. I thought Ethics was going to be streaming tomorrow about the religion thing, but I guess they streamed tonight earlier and it popped up in the feed. And I looked at a little bit of it, but I had to prepare to stream. And I think, he was going at it with the guy that was a religious Christian. And it's kind of like two religious people because evolution's a religion, and he's blaming everything on religion when
Wow.
I typed in the chat, I said, look, governments are the ones that wage war. Now they can wage it under the disguise of a religious belief, but it's the government in modern times that push this. And the evolutionists will try to use the argument of, no, religion has caused more killing and good people to do bad things. Well, if we even use their own illogic, say, well, okay, when humans were just starting off with no religion, what they didn't have war?
Yeah, and is killing really a bad thing? That's subjective. Because think about it, without the Civil War and over 500,000 people dying, we wouldn't have ended slavery. If we didn't go to war and killed, we couldn't defeat the Confederacy.
Well, I think that I don't think that the Civil War was really about ending slavery.
Oh, but that's another argument, and I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying it is. I'm just using that as an example of ethics.
Yeah, we can look at that and say, one, it was forced. It was forced war. So it wasn't like you're never going to get a lasting peace off of forced war. So we saw Jim Crow, we saw sharecropping, we saw horrible things that just never improved. We saw the Klan get created the same year the war ended.
Yes, right after it ended.
Evolution, the religion of evolution was pushed in to also say, look, these people are not as human. So we've seen all of that happen. So when we look at that, we start to say, wow, so it's like war and getting good people to do bad things is not really based on religion, because if we look at that Civil War thing, that wasn't a religious war.
Oh, no. I'm just saying the ethical, the arguments that objective ethics makes about,
about religion. So he's making arguments about religion causing good people to do bad things.
Yeah.
The Civil War wasn't religion causing people to do that. It was government law.
And he always appeals to some type of evil. Well, that's only based on your own standards. It's not based on the standards of other people. And that's subjective. That's the thing.
Well, the thing is and I hear what you're saying, but just for the sake of him or others to try to bring in that argument is to say, okay, we'll remove that. We'll remove everything so they have nothing to stand on, to where it's just boiled down to the bottom line. Like when they say religion causes good people to do bad things and it is the main reason. And I say, no, that's not true. It's belief. Right. So when we boil religion down, it's belief.
But what determines what's bad? That's the issue of that. It's a flaw in his argument.
Well, it's
what
not
is
about
bad. What is evil based on whose standard?
Well, it's not about. See, we can't bring that in right away, because the point being made is not about what is bad or good. It's about what is causing people to commit the act of violence, whether the act be good or bad. So
Right.
killing, right? So we know that if you have to protect yourself and that has to be done, well, you're doing it in a way that that is not considered aggressive or bad because the other people are invading where you live.
But that's in our opinion also. That's our subjective.
Well, I don't know if it's our subjective, because if somebody were to come in to try to kill you in your home and you defended yourself by
Mhm.
killing them, say it's multiple attackers and you
Sure.
pull out your weapon and you manage to kill them,
Absolutely.
are you wrong? No. And that's
But the
not subjective.
family of the robber might disagree. They said you
Well,
never
no,
should have killed him.
the robber can disagree, but we know he's wrong. And this is where objective ethics has a very good point, because the robber might say, well, I don't think it's wrong, but yeah, when somebody goes to take your stuff, it's wrong now. So we see it is objective. It's not subjective. He'll try to lie and say, well, you defending yourself is wrong. It's like, no, 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 no. Because if somebody did it to them, they wouldn't want that to happen. So I'm not saying it's always going to be a full scale objective.
Right.
There are going to be situations that change that. And remember, we're taught to think in this one type of thinking. It's got to be
Hmm.
this or that. It's got to, and we got to remember that this is a shifting thing. It can shift to where, like lying, the book Lying, the Moral Implications by Cicely Bach makes a very good point that lying destroys the fabric of society. It destroys the fabric of relationships, of
But what about
communities.
a white lie? What about a white lie?
A white lie, and that's a very good point you brought up, because she did mention that. I'm seeing where I have it saved.
So, say
Uh,
the sake of not hurting somebody's feelings. Let's put
well,
it that way.
again, the white lie, even the word the white lie goes back to racism. It's saying that, well, if it's a
Hmm.
white lie, it's not as bad. So saying that
Good
if
point. Good
you
point.
see, yeah,
Yeah.
so we have that. But she says, Cicely Bach says, lying, moral choice in public and private life. The book argues that lying is generally harmful and erodes trust, proposing that honesty should be the default. Though she acknowledges rare, justifiable exceptions, Bach emphasizes the principle of veracity, arguing that lies must be weighed against their social impact, the mental burden on the liar, and the immediate harm to the victim. So the key arguments, or really, and this is how the AI will put it, they'll use that word argument, but it's really the key evidence and principle. So we got to be smart enough to know that AI is going to try to train us again to say, oh, the key argument. No, those aren't the key arguments. Those are the key elements. The key elements, the evidence that's presented. So we got to constantly correct this, or they'll pull us back into debate and argument instead of evidence and conversation. So the harm of lying is never neutral. It harms the social fabric by damaging trust, even when victims are unaware they were deceived. So now the principle of veracity. While some lies may be necessary, Bach argues that a presumption against lying should be maintained. A lie is only acceptable if there are no reasonable, truthful alternatives. I'll use an example. Somebody breaks in a school and is trying to harm people, and the kids hide and they want to know where they are. It would make sense to lie
Yeah.
and tell them, no, they're not over here, they're over there. So in protection, the principle of publicity, to determine if a lie is justifiable, ask if it would be defensible before the community of reasonable persons. The test of publicity, Bach suggests testing a proposed lie by running it by a sample of people to see if a reasonable public consensus would justify the lie. Power imbalance. So lying creates an information imbalance that is fundamentally coercive, making it especially unethical when used by those in power. So politicians, doctors, over the individuals. Types of deceptions. She analyzes various justification, including white lies, lies to the sick, and political lies like the noble lie, arguing that we often underestimate the negative impacts of such deception. So when she mentioned including white lies, it's like we say that term, if we look at it, that term should people should realize, like, yeah, the correct term are uh, non-damaging lies, a lie of protection instead of saying a white lie, because that's like,
Right.
again, we see why the word was put in there. So we get deep into that and we start to say, wow, again, the words, the English language is made in a way that just it's made to keep us arguing and blaming and debating with one another. If we can't think our way through this, it will always be, you see the childlike state of mentality where they're like, oh, we'll debate about that then, or, present your argument. It's like, no, let's just sit down and have a conversation. How about that? Now, I know your
Sure.
parents, talking about them, not us, we would say, we know that your parents never taught you that, because if they did, we wouldn't have to teach it to you. So again, they will lie. They will lie and say, oh, no, my parent, really? If your parents taught you that, well, then I wouldn't have to teach it to you right now. We all had to learn this on our own. My parents didn't teach it to me. I had to learn it on my own.
Me
So
too.
and that's the thing. So if I say that in the middle of it, they feel a little more at ease. And I shouldn't have to say that because it shows how immature they are. So I have to show that I also had to learn for that person to actually start to act mature. That shows of their the depth of their immaturity. I mean, these people are like extremely immature under the disguise of, well, I own a business, or I work, or I do this and I make more money than you. So that makes you what? Mature? That
Exactly.
doesn't make you mature. So we start to see now the stupidity in the person, to
Hmm.
say, again, it's not an insult, it's a description. The ignorance, how the ignorance runs deep. The biggest enemy that everybody has is ignorance. It's not
It
another
is.
person. It's the ignorance that they had of who they were the day prior. And this whole thing of debating and presenting, it's just Christopher says, is omission a lie? And when we add to that, that's a very good question, man. People would say that lie by omission, like when they say that, so that's like technically saying the omission is a lie, but is it what Bach is saying, to where it is a necessary lie? It's a protecting lie. It's sort of like, if you're saying, like, to protect somebody with that, if omission is a lie. So if we look and we say, okay, just to get the meat of it, not just saying, is it a lie that is protective? Is omission actually a lie? So I'll just look it up, just to be sure. And this is not to be totally sure, because we know AI will lie. AI does lie.
Sure.
So it says omission is considered a form of lying, known as lying by omission, like I had said earlier.
Mhm.
um, it occurs when someone intentionally withholds crucial information to misrepresent the truth and intentionally foster a misconception, which
Mm.
I think can be used in both ways, in good,
Exactly.
yeah, and
You,
bad. So
you
yeah,
named it when you said about the school and telling them the wrong place of where the kids are. That
exactly.
would be the definition of omission,
Yeah.
because he didn't
Or
give the killer the facts of where the children were
yeah.
living.
And
Mhm.
it can even be used to defend something that is wrong, like that, in a right way, to say, okay,
Mhm.
this guy's girlfriend is having sex with some dude in the bathroom, and and he's like, hey, is my girlfriend in that bathroom doing anything? And it's like, no, I didn't see her. She's not in the bathroom, because that this guy's going to go in there, pull out a weapon, and use violence,
Exactly.
possibly ending both of them or one of them. So in that sense, they're committing an act that's wrong, and you're lying actually to protect the life of whoever it is, or even the freedom of the man that might go in there and do something that he doesn't mean to do,
Yeah.
due to an emotional response. So we start to see that this whole thing, and this is something that you see, I see, Christopher, Mark sees definitely in on the internet, that everybody, they're all into this debate and this argument. It's like just a perpetual state of immaturity. It's childhood, and that's what kind of, it pushed me to make the prompt to make this type of thumbnail for it. It's
It's a
basically
good
like,
one.
Thanks, man. It's like they're wearing bibs. One's like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. And that's all it is. It's like no type of learning. And then everybody's in the background shaking their rattles with bibs, picking their noses, sucking on pacifiers. And,
Hmm.
I thought to myself, and I got to thank my friend Edgar. He gave me like a compliment on the thumbnails. He goes, yo, they're really cool. He's from the You Gotta Laugh podcast for people if they want to check it out. We did a collaboration video. It's at the bottom of the homepage. So if anybody wants to check his channel, he's definitely, I went to high school with him. He's always been cool, very intelligent, intellectual thinker. He's the one that kept me grounded when I had speculated and I said, we know we can't really say where we're going, but, what do you think? And he was just like, we don't even know where this is. So it's so good to have friends like that keep you grounded, to say, look,
Excellent quote,
yeah,
because we have debates on what our conversations on what this is, but we got to find out what this is first before we start thinking about what's comes next.
yeah, exactly. And to also know that we can't definitively say what comes next, but there's a power in that. And the power is honesty. And to say, and this is the problem that evolutionists have, as well as deity religions have, because they think they know, and they'll live with that cognitive dissonance of thinking they know something that they can't possibly know. It's impossible to know. It's like,
But could we know it's something though? Could
oh
we
yeah,
know it's something? Not what that something is in detail, but
yeah, we
it's
can.
going to be a something. For sure. Well,
I would,
actually, by
I would
default,
think,
that is true.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but I would think so. But the reason I would think so, if somebody says, "Well, okay, what's your basis on that?" Wow, Christopher's got a good one. Debate, debate. Oh man, that is excellent. That's a
What is that
subliminal.
one?
That's a good one. Sublim, and these words, they're structured in this way. The bait. It's like, do you want to take the bait? And it
Oh,
is, right.
good.
That's a really good one, Christopher. This is where the learning happens, where we're conversating and people's adding in bits of evidence like Christopher just added in. And we're learning instead of saying, well, we're going to debate over whether debate is a is a battle. And it's like, that's just total idiocy at that point. We're saying, no, we're looking at the evidence, we're looking at the elements of the conversation, and we're saying, wow, it really does seem to be that debating with somebody is just beating each other up, and it's not about learning, it's about winning. So you don't learn anything there, and you stay in a barbaric state of mind because
Yeah.
it goes into, present your argument. Like I've heard people say and maybe they say it accidentally, because we all can fall back into that. And they'll say, well, the argument you're presenting, and it's like, I'm not presenting an argument. I'm presenting evidence that we can talk about. Because they want to pull, they're like crabs in a bucket. They want to pull you back into the bucket of stupidity and ignorance when you're outside of the bucket saying, look, come on, man, crawl out the bucket and let's sit down and have a conversation.
Right.
Like,
Right.
well,
I guess
okay.
that was my interpretation of a debate,
Yeah,
a conversation.
and look at how easy, as we talked about it, you realize like, oh, okay, as far as definitively the definition, if we go back into looking at the definition, you automatically were open-minded to say, okay, well, I can look that up. You can look that up. You just type in debate. It'll show the traces, the roots. When I presented it to ethics, he didn't want to accept that.
See, that's the difference.
Oh, well, it means, agnostic means different things. When he was so-called debating the guy tonight, which definitely wasn't a conversation, especially the way they were talking, with Robin was the moderator. And, he had under his name agnostic. So I think it must have got to him a little. And hopefully he knows I got much love for him, man. Hopefully he'll see through the illusion the ego that's keeping him saying that he's an agnostic while he believes in evolution. Right. So it's like, even my friend from You Gotta Laugh podcast, because he didn't know where ethics stood. And I said, yeah, he's an evolutionist, but he claims to be an agnostic. So how do you claim to know where life came from, how it develops, but then you claim that you don't know by the word agnosticism? And
Mhm.
that's where he had come on here and he goes, oh, no, it has different meanings. And it's like, no, it doesn't. That's like him saying, I guarantee you, pretty much, and I could be wrong, but I would put a guarantee that he would say, oh, well, debate has different meanings when it doesn't. There is no, whenever they put a different meaning on it, you start to say, no, no, no. That's somebody lying and trying to tell you it means different things. And the perfect example we know of that is the word evolution. When they see a life form adapting within the species, oh, they're quick to say that's evolution. Their whole thing is that, well, that's evolution, and
Mhm.
it's like, no, that's adaptation. That is the life form adapting to the environment, and it's changing to that environment. When a an animal with fur sheds its fur for the warm season, that's a form of adaptation. It is adapting to the warmer climate. It is not evolving.
And what
If
I don't like is with the millions of years, why can't they accept that's a belief and not scientific? Why can't they do that? They know it's not scientific. There's no way it's scientific, but
that's
they just won't accept it.
that's the cognitive dissonance. That's the
Mhm.
mental conflict, for a better word that people would understand it. That is the internal conflict in their mind of
Mhm.
holding two opposing thoughts. The fact that it is not scientific, it is a belief, and that it contradicts the whole theory that they bring up. So they have to keep it in their mind and say, well, no, it's scientific, but yet it's a belief. And
Yeah, that kills their whole argument right there.
yeah, well, again, it's right. The fact that it's even an argument, that also shows that it's like, wait, if you got to argue it, and you're just already in the bucket with the other crabs.
Mhm.
It's just, if it's saying it kills their argument or not, we say, well, wait, wow, and that's a good catch, because we say, wow, that's true. They're not presenting evidence; they just want to argue the cognitive dissonance.
Mhm.
We have to be smart enough to say, look, man, there's no argument to be had. It's like Mark Twain said, no amount of evidence can convince an idiot. So nothing we can present will convince it. When somebody's in a state of idiocy, they
Mhm.
cannot be, we can't convince them anyway. They have to accept the evidence. So there is no convincing somebody,
Right.
so that again is a it's a wrongness in the language, again, like the debate thing and other
Mhm.
things, verbal gymnastics. Exactly, bro. Christopher is on fire, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much, man. Ragamuffin, good to see you, man. If you want to hop on, man, we got the link pinned to the top of the chat. It's up. We always keep it there to see, unless there's a guest that comes on. Like when Sosa came on, I gave him the courtesy of speaking with him before, letting people come on. I didn't want to like openly have people just attack him. I know people were ready to attack. It's hilarious with the fact that he was into he's not into like NASA in the way that somebody would think about it, but I
Mhm.
understand, when he was talking about the comics. I mean, the fact that he says the sun is more electrical, that shows you
Mhm.
right there that NASA's not going for that. So he's defying a lot of stuff. But you let people grow at the rate they want to grow. And who knows? He might be right about certain things with comet
That's right.
orbits and stuff, or he could be wrong.
Mhm.
It's not for us
Agreed.
to debate and to say, hey, this is what it is. And, I want him to
Because
believe.
nobody's 100% certain. Nobody has all the details. Give me a break. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I would definitely say that when he said about I think it was Pioneer 10, or some satellite probes, I'm like,
Mhm.
well, that's kind of iffy there, because now you're believing what they're telling you. You're telling me the telemetry and the images that they're sending back, they're not altering them, they're not lying, so it could be a very massive lie, and we have to stay open to that. But that invitation wasn't really for that, because
Of course.
it was for something else. He said he will come back. I spoke to him
Yeah.
uh maybe earlier this month, I think it was, and he goes, "Yeah," he goes,
You want guys like this on the show and objective ethics too, because as long
"Oh,
as they can present their information,
yeah, he is such a cool,
intelligently and everything, that's all that
yeah,
we ask.
yeah, Objective is an extremely cool brother, man. I really appreciate his conversation,
Mhm.
and I would hope that he he opens up to it and sees that conversation is where it's at. I know he's being influenced by Gnosis and the other channels, because they have like a little network I've noticed of these atheists that pose as agnostics but are pushing the religion of evolution.
Mhm.
I think another one is the Mirror podcast or something. That's his friend Scott, who claims to be a non-dualist, but again, he's an evolutionist. They're very, very
These
tricky.
terms,
Yeah.
just unbelievable. Just say you don't believe in God. Just leave it at that.
Yeah.
They want to make it so complicated to make it sound like it's important. It's not.
Well, it's not even a belief to believe in God, because I can understand when he asked me, he goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, why do that's why I named the channel Architects of Humanity. It's
Mhm.
some type of construction of life. An engineering. It's, for lack of having to use the word intelligent design, because I don't want people to associate me with the Christian movement that is just trying to be very illogical by saying, "Oh, there's a flood, so that proves it was this exact flood, Noah or whatever." It's like, or it proves their religion correct, and it's like, no, it definitely proves that there's a flood, but
Mhm.
not the exact one. That you're talking about. It could, but there's no way to really know,
Mhm.
to say, well, how do we know it's that flood? And then when we go back to the Epic of Gilgamesh that talks about a flood, and then even older stuff with Ninurta that talks about the similar type of flood. If
Mhm.
we're going to take that into account to say, okay, well, why don't we take into account the stuff I presented about the Pegasus scroll that showed what appears to be a horse with wings on a Sumerian scroll? So
Mhm.
this is where the bias comes in, where we'll see that on a scroll, we'll see what appears to be dinosaurs on a scroll, but then we won't accept it. We'll only accept what we want to accept on the scroll. To say, no, 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 that just that's a little too out there. But we'll
But the
accept.
question is important, though, of whether or not a flood occurred. That is a very important
Oh,
question
yeah, and
because
that's a fact. That's a fact. The flood did occur. Many floods occurred.
and it's an important question as far as our past, because if
Yes.
there were civilizations that are living underneath the ocean floor, artifacts, we should know that. That has a lot to do with our past and our beginnings.
Yes, yes, exactly. See, this is where we see that evolution, the lie of evolution, does not want to search for human origins
Mhm.
because of all the sites, the archaeological sites that have been militarized, the filling back in of Göbekli Tepe. So the fact that they filled it back in and they say, "Oh, we're doing it to preserve it for future generations." I'm like,
Mhm.
"What?" And people buy that? That's
Yeah.
like the 9/11 story. It's like
Yeah.
they buy that, and we talked all about government, about how it's a lying fiction created to basically control people. So when you look at a lot of evolutionists, it's the religion of the state. So
It
they'll
is.
be quick, to bring that, "Oh, well, you got to do this." And I'm like, so you're telling me that you don't see the corruption knee deep all around? It's beyond knee deep. It's waist deep. It's neck
And
deep at
you know
this.
what's really sad about the whole thing, too?
Uh-huh.
Really sad is the people who came up with that theory don't even believe in that theory. They think it's a bunch of crap. It was meant for the masses, for the underclass. The
Yes.
people at the top don't believe in any of that nonsense. They're very spiritual people. And
Mhm.
it's like these guys who promote it, it's like you're doing the free work for the state, The teachers have to get paid to teach us in school, but you guys are doing it for free. That's what makes it so sad. You know what I mean? It's just like
Mhm.
you're the idiots. You're the useful idiots for the state,
Yes,
basically.
exactly. Like Yuri Bezmenov pointed out very, very eloquently, that they are useful idiots. They are just useful idiots, and they serve their purpose well. With Cicely Bach, Bach argues for a high standard of honesty in both public and private life. She stresses that trustworthiness is a crucial component in a stable society. So we see that to be true.
I
And
agree. I agree 100% with that.
yeah, she really, that book is deep. Lying, Moral Choice in Public and Private Life. It's really deep. I have an
But
old
where I
copy.
disagree is that we can do that. We can implement that. That's where I a little bit, because I just don't think the world's set for that. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
not all,
I agree
not
with the
all.
premise.
Yeah, only small groups, I would say, because we
Yeah.
already see how quickly we can fall back into the mind control,
Mhm.
the words, how they can slip past us and be like, oh man, I'm seeing now that yeah, this is
Right.
something that yeah, but
Like if you want to build a community, like you guys have talked about, all it takes
Mhm.
is one or two people to say, "Hey, let's steal this stuff and just go somewhere else," and that's it. That's the end of your community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like, yeah,
you have to
it's
have
nice in theory, but in reality, it's pretty tough.
yeah, you got to have something to protect it. But she goes even deeper in with exploring the refined utilitarianism, where lies are evaluated by their costs, their benefits, and potential to prevent greater harm. So justifications are considered if a lie is necessary, the last resort, survives the test of publicity. And this ties in perfectly with the whole debate thing to say, well, people are like, oh, let's debate, let's argue. And it's like, no, 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 no. That because it's based on a lie. It's based on the premise that we're going to learn, but we're not learning. All you're doing is trying to win, and you're trying to win with very unscrupulous methods where we
Yes.
don't learn. It keeps us in a stupidity state of mind, a violent, barbaric state that's very close to watching boxing fights and MMA fights, which keeps us in a lower energy to where, when you look at that, you say, what any any real civilization, if there ever was one, would look at that and say, are you mad? It's like this is a barbaric cult of death that happens to have technology, and they use the technology to say, oh no, look, we're civilized. That's no, technology does not make you civilized.
No.
Technology makes you advanced in technology. It makes you to where you have certain things that, okay, you don't have to go to the river to get the water. It's piped.
Right.
You have plumbing, stuff like that. So you have sanitation. That's not saying that you're civilized. That's not saying you can be a barbarian and still have a flushable toilet.
Hmm.
So again, it keeps us in a perpetual state of ignorance, fueled by the immaturity that it constantly floods to us. And a big part of that is lying to ourselves. And ethics
Yeah.
has a point where, self-respect begins with uh, respecting ourselves to where really it begins with being honest, to be
Sure.
honest.
I mean,
And
look
I,
at what. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, look at the situation. I won't go into too much details for the sake of the stream. I don't want to
No,
get
go
in
right ahead.
trouble.
Go right
But
ahead.
in the Middle East, what's going on? Obviously, with I'll just say the Palestinians.
Hmm.
We know for a fact, 100% fact, that not all of them were part of any type of terrorist group. We know that. Some were innocent people who just worked and had a family and so forth. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
we have to, yeah,
they're no longer here.
yeah, I'm not exonerating anything that's happening. I'm just saying that they are the descendants of of basically invasions of terrorists. So like with
Right.
everybody in Pakistan, Afghanistan,
But
they're
we
the
could all,
victims.
so could we be also with our English
Yeah,
blood. You know what
and
I'm
we are
saying?
too. Yeah, a lot of us are too. We are the product of that. The problem is where you're getting into an extremely religious area of the world. So, like with Pakistan, they have people that, I mean, it's just constant beef with India. And when you look at it, you start to say, well, Pakistan are the invaders. I mean, you have some extremely good debaters like Mehdi, I forgot his
Hmm.
last name. I don't know if it's Hassan or something, but he's a journalist from India, but he's Muslim.
Hmm.
And he will debate, he's very, very smart, but when you look at it, it would be hard to talk to him and say, listen, man, you know that your great, great, great grandmother was raped by Arabs, by Muslims, and that's why you're Muslim. Your part of you is Hindu,
Hmm.
and that's the part that was invaded. But yet it's the ultimate form of Stockholm syndrome. When I look
Right.
at the whole Islamic invasion, they don't call it that. Now that this is happening, because what is happening to Palestine, they've done that to people throughout history. They've
Sure.
done worse. They've done worse than that, to where we don't see it because they cover up their lies very well. In Sudan, over, I think it's close to 500,000 Muslims have been killed just recently. Now, this isn't like back in history. This is just recently, to where they're fleeing to Ethiopia, Eritrea. They're going to Egypt. They're going to the surrounding countries because it's so bad. Nobody talks about that, which shows me the problem isn't that, to what, and this is brutal. People might look at this as brutal. It's not that these children and all of that are being slaughtered over there, whatever. The problem is who's doing it. Their prejudice against the Jewish state or the Jewish people. And if Muslims are doing it, we don't hear a peep. We don't hear a peep about those women and children. They're also doing it to tribal Africans. And that's horrible, because all of those Africans in Sudan were tribal. But nobody's talking about the great pillage and plunder, about those children, about those cultures. It's all about, oh, look, it's Israel doing this. Now, I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying, well, if you're going to call it out, because it's so hypocritical. Look at what Pakistan is doing to Afghanistan and India. And it's all because it's based in it. Now, there are some people who have been born into the Muslim religion that are very, they're forgiving, loving people. They're people that they're just good people in all religions. And if we're going to say that, we also have to say that there's good people in the Judean religion as well.
Well, can't we agree also that we haven't become more civilized as time has gone by, like the evolutionists would say, and technology has
no, yeah,
more
we definitely
civilized?
have. Yeah, no, there's
And
something
that's
about
just proof example of it, that we're still doing slaughters, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Jewish.
barbaric. Yeah,
It's
barbaric.
still slaughter. We're not civil. We're not civil.
We're not.
Technology can make a difference. And evolution, we haven't evolved to
Yeah.
civility.
Oh,
None of
yeah.
that's happened. There's no proof for that.
Yeah, there is, and they will blame it on religion. We saw that. We saw that they will blame it on religion when they're not realizing that it's hard to see, but it's not religion.
It's not religion.
Exactly. It's the state law. It's you look at these people, they're not saying it's God's order that we have to go to war with Iran or Israel's going to. They're saying no, this is the people in government that are saying it's the law. And this is something that I can't believe evolutionists have their heads so deeply buried in the sand that they'll say, no, it's evolution of religion causes people to do that.
I'd even argue ancient times wasn't based on religion either. I'd argue that too was based on kings and queens and domination of the state. It was always the state.
Exactly. And this is
in power.
Yeah, the mental disease that they have to just, it's like a hatred they have of anything that's religious. And there are some nutcase religious people, without a doubt. Christopher says, as soon as a lie is detected in a relationship, I lost trust in that relationship. I often wondered if small lies are the gateway to more important ones. I think they are, man. That's a good point. That's a good point. I consider someone who lies a person who disrespects you enough not to tell you the truth. Exactly, bro. There's an old saying that it's not that the lie doesn't hurt me as much as knowing that I wasn't worth the truth. So it's like a worth thing too. It's like, wow, you didn't even look at me as I had enough worth to tell me the truth. It's like you just basically lied. And it's a form of extreme disrespect that also there's something that says when somebody deceives you, that person, in telling them, the person who deceived the person, say it's an outside third party, and I see someone that deceives somebody else, and they say, oh yeah, they thought I was actually believing what I was saying. And it's like, you know what? It's not even about that. It's about, think about that they trusted you. So you had somebody that trusted you and you deceived them. And yeah, all warfare is based on deception. But people are doing this, and it's not in war. It is used for manipulation, for coercion, for profit, for I
Mhm.
mean, it's horrible when you think it's based on an immaturity, and it's based on and I wouldn't even say it's like how ethics would say, and he wants to talk about this. Hopefully he doesn't look at it as a debate, like I think he's in that frame of mind a lot. He hopefully looks at it as a conversation to say, look, man, it's not always that somebody's going to lie to you or disrespect you because it's a lack of their respect for themselves. It could be, but also it could be a lack of maturity. And that maturity could also be linked to not being mature enough to respect themselves, or it could just be that they're immature. That part of them
Sure.
is immature. They respect themselves enough to do certain things, but they are so immature that they're not mature enough to appreciate good relationships, to appreciate that when somebody trusts you, you don't do that. That is wrong. I've seen this done in many relationships too. I mean, it's horrible. Guys, especially, we see it. The guys that just want to sleep with a woman, they'll lie to them, and a lot of these women get hurt from that. The woman is many times more effective than the guy in many relationships. But with Cicely Bach, with the lying book, lying moral choice in public and private life, she says she doesn't provide a blanket justification for lies, but rather explores that refined utilitarianism where lies are evaluated by their cost, benefits, and potential to prevent further harm. So justifications are only considered if a lie is necessary, a last resort, and survives the test of publicity. So some of the key points discussed in this book basically is that regarding potentially justified lies include avoiding immediate harm. So, as we saw, lies intended to protect the innocent from serious harm or violence, such as protecting someone from an attacker. White lies, which are minimal lies, instead of using that word, minor truths that are not intended to injure others and are often seen as trivial, such as in social situations through though she warns these can easily lead to a web of deceit. And that's exactly what Christopher was saying. Christopher brought up that point very well, that that's the smaller lie, can lead into something, it's a gateway actually to more important ones, more deceitful ones. So he's right in line, and that's him just thinking, showing that his own intelligence is lining up correctly with this. So this is a great way to test if what we're thinking is thinking in a very high manner, and without even reading the book. So just logic and reason brought him to that conclusion actually, which is accurate, extremely accurate. So the transition, like when we look at these things, her points with avoiding immediate harm, the minor truths that can lead to the web of deceit, lies to the sick and dying, traditionally justified to protect vulnerable individuals from distress, though Bach's cautions against paternalism on that. Lies to enemies in contexts like war or protecting oneself from unjust aggression, and the test of publicity too. So the core framework where a lie is only justified if it can be defended before a jury, reasonable person, peers. She heavily emphasizes in the principle of veracity. So that's another one there. But yeah, it gets really deep when I think about that with the whole. Yeah, it's it's a
But I
deep
think
book.
there's a metaphysical property. No, I was just going to say, I think there's a metaphysical issue there too, because it just can't be resolved with words, because we have to know what the intention of the lie was. Was it to harm somebody or was it to help somebody?
Hmm.
So then we go into that metaphysical part of what was the intention of the person, something non-physical, what they
Yeah,
were trying to do. You know what I'm saying? And what if somebody told a lie thinking they were helping when they were actually hurting, but their intention wasn't to hurt, it was to help, but it turned out to hurt the person.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's where the metaphysical comes in. And that's why, people like myself who believe in a higher creator can read into our intentions and know what we were thinking. You know, we can screw things up. You know what I'm saying? Like I've said some things in the past, I know, on the stream, and my intention wasn't to harm. It's just it was basically a screw up. You know what I mean? That was not my intention. It was just a screw up.
Mhm.
You know,
Make mistakes,
and it
and
was a
that's
mistake.
to
Yeah,
err is human, right?
the error is human. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, I'll just bring it up. Like back in the old stream, you know, we had the black pill. I brought up was someone of the dating coaches. I won't even say his name, but you know who it was. It was never to harm at all.
Mhm.
And I didn't really look at the date. And honestly, you know why I was looking at it? To see if they were talking about me because all these guys are talking so much trash. I was like, I wonder if they said anything about Mr. X. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was just curious. You know, when you're bored, you're just looking at a million
Yeah.
things. You know how it is on the internet. And but my intention was never to harm or deceive, but it came across another way. You see what I'm saying? But that was obviously not my intention. And why would I even be here if that was my intention? You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely, man. And you're absolutely right. It can be totally unintentional, and that's something where we have to be mature enough. I have
Hmm.
to become more mature to say yes, that was unintentional, and that's a great point to bring that up because
Yeah.
these can happen unintentionally like that. It can happen where say we see somebody trying to achieve something physically, like they're training for the long jump, and we say yes, you can make it. Now we don't know for sure if that person can make the jump. we're
Right.
we're lying in a motivational way, and they might not make it. They might hurt themselves, and it is not intentional. We're
No.
not saying that so they intentionally hurt themselves. We're saying that so they succeed. So
Yeah.
there are so many ways of looking at it and say, well, okay, these are justifiable to say, well, these are motivating the person. But
Hmm.
in some sense, there is a point where it's like, well, wait a minute, I think you should be careful. I think you can make it, but be careful because if you miss that jump, you can hurt yourself. But
Yeah, but then the person could interpret as why you're trying to be negative. You
yes,
know,
it could.
yeah, I thought I could. I thought you would support me. I thought you'd have my back. And of course, what was the religious term would be what was in your heart.
Yeah. And if
And
they
it's
do
obviously
that,
to help them. Yeah.
yeah, if they do that, it just shows that they're not mature enough they want the lie. Like most people, when you look at it, they do want the lie. They'll say,
We did.
look, they don't care if they get hurt. They want the lie. Don't be, like you said, they'll say, don't be negative. Yeah.
Hmm.
Interpretation. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it plays metaphysical plays a big role in our world, our reality of our day to day life. You know, I'm sure you've had situations where you might have said something, not intending it to be harmful, and it did
Yeah.
come out wrong, or the person
Many
interpreted it
times.
completely
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah. Many
We
times.
all have.
Yeah.
We all have. Yeah.
And it's just something that, yeah, it happens. It makes you wonder too. Sometimes you say it and you say, man, why did I say that?
Hmm.
And then we say, well, was there something else that other parts of us, because we're going on the assumption that the conscious mind that we're speaking with is the only part of us, is the main part. Can the bacteria in us, the majority of our cells, can they influence what we say? Can they influence the way we act without us knowing it, without us thinking that we're acting of our own accord?
Right.
Where it's not saying that we're not taking responsibility for what we're saying. We're actually going into, like what you were saying, that real metaphysical thing. Can we
Yeah.
be momentarily possessed? Can we
Hmm.
be affected by physical stuff that actually have consciousness, like the
Yes.
microbiome, the bacteria? And this is really where science and metaphysics meet. Metaphysics is part of science. It's just a
I
part
agree.
that evolutionists don't want to look into.
But
You
it's a
know,
big part of our lives. It's
yeah,
a big part. I mean, misinterpretation of what someone was trying to say has caused wars, has caused,
hmm,
arguments and loss of friendships, and sometimes even something even worse. It's
yeah, yeah. People have to be mature enough to say, look, if they have a disagreement, like you said, if somebody says something unintentional, did not mean
Mhm.
to cause harm, even if sometimes they say it and they did, the mature thing would be like, can we resolve that? Can we resolve
Exactly.
that and move forward and say, okay, look, you meant that, it's not good to do that, right? So,
Hmm.
and that's like a very high level of maturity where
It
people
is.
can grow. Forge, good to see you, man. The mind, he says, they just don't want to lie. They want the attention as well. That's actually a very good point. That's actually an extremely good point. A lot of them are just attention wanters. People do things and put themselves in danger because it gives them either some type of rush or also the sense of look what I can do. That is very true, man. That we see it all over. Yep, emotional content, man. We see it. We see it like it's gotten to a point where it resembles a mental illness. We see it all over on the internet. They'll fake situations. Um, what was it? Just recently, one of those guys that was going around taunting people with racial stuff, and he had to ended up, I think he got into an altercation with firearms, and I think two guys are now incarcerated because of that. And it all came from somebody, egos, attention, uh,
Mhm.
immaturity, aggression, instead of saying, "Hey, you know what? Let's try to get along with each other." Let's because he would try to antagonize people, and it's like one. I was talking with a friend of mine, and she made a good point that some women will say that they should be able to walk around basically in the nude and nobody should attack them. And it's like, really? It's like, so that privilege, that wanting that privilege, that's the same privilege that leads to the woman that went into the polar bear exhibit at the zoo and got mauled, like expecting that she can go in there and this polar bear shouldn't attack her. We've seen it happen with other zoo exhibits. People go into the enclosure and get mauled. And it's like, are you nuts? It's like, what's wrong with you? What you think that this animal that has been falsely imprisoned? I mean, a zoo is a prison where everybody's innocent. I mean, it's just horrible when you just think of zoos on the animal level. And then, as you and I know, they put people in those zoos too. So, which is even more horrific. And see, that's the thing that I noticed. I don't know if Ethic knows about that, about Oda Benga and the other black people that they basically put in enclosures in zoos based on the religion of evolution. It was all based on trying to push the religion that he believes in and tries to morph the words and say, well, agnostic means this and this means no, it doesn't. It means not knowing. That's what it means. So now when you try to twist it, we see what he's either doing consciously or subconsciously, to say, all right, maybe you don't know the damage you're doing. Maybe
I
maybe
don't think he does. I really don't believe he does. Because even me, I didn't know about humans. It was until recently that it was brought up. Yeah. So I think he's a
yeah,
little
I
bit
think he's a
unaware.
good-hearted person. I really do. I give
Yeah.
him the
That's
benefit
the
of the
gist
doubt.
I get from him,
Yeah,
honestly.
I do think that the people he's around definitely know, and they're influencing him, and that's what's causing that deep-seated belief
Hmm.
disguised as not being a belief, but a belief. So that's the worst part. The fact that we know it's a deep-seated belief, and it's disguised as no, 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 it's not a belief. It's science. It's like, are you serious?
I mean, based on what I've heard from him so far, I think he's good-hearted.
Oh
I
yeah.
think he means well. It's just the philosophy that humans can create objective ethics, I think, is where the flaw is. It was not about him as a person being a bad person. No, I think he's a great person. So
Yeah.
from what I know
Well,
so far.
I'd like to talk with him about that because he's right. We did change the subject and we were all over the place. So I'd
Cool.
like him to come back, or I'll go on his channel and talk about that. I mean,
Mhm.
and I understand my friend You Gotta Laugh podcast said, oh yeah, he can see why he wouldn't accept the invite to have that collaboration on his channel. It would be nice if we did have the collaboration, even though it did go off topic, because there's learning. Sometimes you learn more from something you didn't intend to talk about and say, hey, we had the discussion or the conversation to be said on this. And it changed and we went over, but we learned about something that we never would have touched on. And
Yeah.
that's how life happens sometimes, to say, wow, look at what a progression we made in an area that we didn't plan. Because life
Mhm.
does not care about your plans. It doesn't care
Right.
about your schedule.
And I
And
respect him for staying on topic too, the way he talks. Because I'll be honest, I'm not going to name names, but sometimes some guys, especially in the past, they come on here, they just blabber. just to
Yeah.
talk to talk. And it's like, wait a minute, let's make a point here. It's not
Yeah.
about talking to
Yeah.
talk. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean?
No, it's true. We saw it with Jose and other guys. I
Oh,
mean,
that was terrible. Like
oh yeah.
I had to leave the channel. Honestly, I'm being honest with you. At the time, I couldn't take it. I'd
Yeah.
come back later when he was done.
Yeah, exactly. He would, I mean, put people asleep. It just a sedative, you know. And
Hmm.
even, you know, like Jake would want to switch the conversation and stuff. And Jake is a cool guy. He has to learn to be mature enough to say, look, he gets influenced. He goes on those channels that, you know, are very talk about a
Hmm.
lot of racial stuff. And I see it leak through. And then maybe he realizes that, okay, this is not the place for him to try to push that rhetoric because
But he
it's
should
not that.
know that. He should
Yeah,
know that. I guess because he talks too much and doesn't listen. That's the
yeah,
problem.
exactly. Yeah, he does go on, but he's open to change. That's one thing I'll give Jake. He's a very intelligent guy. He's he can take criticism. I give him a lot of credit for that.
100% agree with that.
Yeah,
100%.
he really, because we saw how, you know, the difference between Jose and him. And you know, and I would hope that Ashar comes back and listens. I mean, I think she got a little offended that I was moving around stuff backstage and I think her wrench got deleted. And I think she took it kind of personal. And you know, I would have gave it back. You know, it's like it's not a big thing, but I think she went through like because 2 more years to Western civilization. I deleted his because he's not around. I mean, that name was from like 3 years ago, so it's longer than 2 more years to the end of Western civilization. You know, and
Hmm.
if he came back with a different name, or you know, I think he disappeared. And there was a few others that, you know, when I refreshed the page, I guess they must have uh, ended it, but I can always add it. So I think she got a little, you know, she goes, oh, you know, I still like to hang out with you guys, and I hope she's doing well. She's a really cool person.
Sure, but I think you're bringing in new people that are pretty productive, too. I think the future looks bright to have a new batch coming
Oh
in.
yeah, yeah. She's a cool person. I would, you know, I spoke with her on email a few times, like 2 years ago or something. Christopher says learning is earning knowledge. Yeah, man. It really. I think that to speak with ethics about it in a conversation, one, I think it would be nice for him to understand that. Look, bro, it's not a debate; it's a conversation. We're not presenting an argument. We're presenting evidence. So the whole the whole structure, the premise of what he's been taught to bring forth is incorrect in that it's not correct in a it's not conducive to learning. That's the proper way to say it. It's not
Yeah.
conducive to learning. It's only conducive to winning or losing and keeping stuck in the same frame of mind of
Hmm.
believing in evolution. To say, wait a second, so you can't be wrong, right? And he's, oh well, we know that, you know, humans invented language. No, we don't.
No, we don't know that at all. And
No, we
honestly, it
don't.
doesn't point to that at all
It
either.
doesn't point to that. And then, well, the ancient Greeks were the first one. No, they weren't. You can look it
Again,
up. That's not even me. It's like, look, just look it up.
but that's mainstream science or history. That's mainstream. You don't
Yeah,
even have to
yeah,
it's not a conspiracy theory at that point. It's like, no, no, you got the Sumerians, the Mesopotamians, the Babylonians. I mean, come on, they were all before the Greeks. They had their own language. They had advanced technology. They were able
yeah.
to build structures. I mean, they had their own laws, the
And
monolith.
I can understand him thinking, because I think what he was trying to say is that the word gnosis and agnostic comes from the Greek, that where that would be the lineage coming to the English, but it goes before that into the Indo, the Proto-Indo, which
Yeah.
also stems into this is why you see German people and people that speak Hindi, when they learn English, they will both use the W as a V. They'll say "wat" instead of "what." So
Mm.
because they have that in there, if you listen to their accents, it's pretty similar. It's like, wow, you know, you see this with when people learn English from German, you know, you know, and I have to give the Germans a lot of credit. When they teach languages, they teach it extremely proficient to where sometimes you won't hear that accent. They'll practice in saying, no, you don't say "wat," you say "what," you know, and those accents, once you learn a language, you can tweak it to where you don't, you know, you won't hear that accent, to where, and that's when somebody really understands the other language, to where you know you don't hear any trace of their previous language, which it's not necessary, because just for somebody learning another language, I give them a lot of credit,
Hmm.
because it's a basic sign of intelligence. That's one way to see the intelligence of a person, is how many languages they know, or how well they can communicate in other languages. Just basically to show that their intelligence is defined as the ability to learn.
Yes.
Some people will incorrectly think, oh, it's your knowledge. And again, that just shows the ignorance, which can be, remediated to say, no, no, no.
Mhm.
Intelligence is your ability to learn. Knowledge is how much you know. And wisdom is knowing whether to say something or not, on how, like ethics put it wisely, how to apply the knowledge you have. So
Sure.
that's an excellent definition that he had put in the chat one time for that. I give him a lot of credit for a lot of the stuff that he's presented. I do see that. I get the feeling that Finding Gnosis and those guys, they're looking to create like a web, and I think he's one of the people that they pushed, and they support him to, as long as he's pushing their religion of evolution. So
Hmm.
him, Robin has her channel, uh the antinatalism guy, that goes back and forth with the host of Gnosis.
Hmm.
And there's a few others, and they're cool. They're a pretty cool crew. They have a lot of things. They don't realize that they're ignorant to the fact that
Sure.
evolution is not. It's a fraud. It's a
And
fairy tale.
what's sad too is, like, the zombies, they think, okay, there's high school, there's college, and then you're pretty much done. No more learning. And it's like,
Yeah,
no. And that's what they've kind of done. They just said, this is what we learned. That's it. The argument's over now, because that's what they taught us.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, come on, man, open your mind. Learning should be until the day you perish,
yeah.
basically.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. We learn. Oh, I would say learning goes even beyond that.
Mhm.
Because you wonder, you can't take the physical. It doesn't seem like you can take the physical.
Yeah.
So what can we really take? Can it be the lessons we learned? Can it be the empathy? Can it be the feelings? Can those
Yes.
transcend the physical into the next realm, or the
I believe it
extension?
does.
Yeah, I really do. I think, and it might not even be a next realm. It might just be the extension of this realm. So there is no other realms. There's just one big realm, like Scribe kind of puts it. And
Mhm.
it gets really tough. Like he mentioned something when I caught the part of it, that before I was setting the stream up, where he was like, he kind of went on a little tirade, calling out like a lot of different beliefs. I think one of them was flat earthers and stuff like that. And it's hilarious because I don't let that get to me. It's like, hey, if somebody wants to believe whatever shape they want to believe, fine. I don't see how that affects me going into the other part of the realm, into the next.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't make, like you said it best. I don't even debate it. It's like, hey, great, that's what you want to believe. And I saw how people were ready to jump on Mr. Sosa when he talked about the comments. It's like Mr. Super Sidewinder jumped on, and he was like, oh, I believe in truth and this and that. It's like, really, come on. I know he was going to bring out the flat, and
I mean, if I'm going to debate a guy like Sosa about a certain topic, I better have some very strong facts on my side.
yeah, and
I
it
better
wouldn't
have
even
done
be
my
a debate.
research.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be a debate, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It would be, if I'm going to have a conversation,
A conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would have my evidence lined up. And he seems very open. Like, when the fact that he has a theory of the growing universe, and he's like, yeah, the Big Bang doesn't make sense. And I'm
Right.
like, that's a really good way of looking at it, because the Big Bang is based on the violence of evolution. It's based
Mhm.
on the bang, the explosion, and then things fighting each other in the preservation of the favored races, and the
Sure.
means of by means of natural selection, which is the title to the origin of species. But they don't like to use that because it shows their prejudice. It shows the racism,
Yeah.
the,
Of
the
course. Like, I would
preservation.
never say to you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would never ever say, like, say you said you made a statement, a truth statement. I would never say to you, MD, well, I don't agree. And then you ask me, well, why don't you agree? I don't know. I just don't agree. that you're never going to hear those words out of me because that's just disagreeing to disagree. I'm only
Yeah,
going to disagree if I feel like I have strong facts on my
yeah,
side,
yeah.
and I'll present those facts.
Or even just saying it doesn't add up. It doesn't
Yeah,
line up with the evidence, because that's not even a disagreement, or that's the higher level to say, what,
yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but it just doesn't line up with the evidence.
But I'll
And
always present facts for
yeah,
my position.
yeah, yeah,
It
and
won't be
that's
based on just disagreeing to disagree.
yeah, and
You'll
I've
see a
noticed
lot of, a lot of.
a lot of that in the people who like to debate. You see that with just the wording. Oh, the argument you're presenting. It's like, I'm not presenting an argument. I'm presenting evidence, and I'm I'd like to speculate on this and see where it can go, instead of, oh, well, you believe this and this is why it's true. It's like, come on, that there's no, like, especially with, oh, well, we know. Who is we?
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
is we? We know. Once somebody says that, it's like, really?
Imagine me, if I were an evolutionist and saying, look, Haeckel, look at the evidence. Look at Ernest Haeckel and his discoveries about how humans are identical to fish. Don't you understand that we know the facts little by little? And then, of course, in the real life, Haeckel just drew the drawings out of his own ass. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and,
That's sad.
and
That's sad.
yeah, very sad. And I've had people say, like, I'm like, look, those drawings have been up in textbook as recent, I think, 2015 or 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
remember them as a kid. I remember them
yeah,
as a kid.
and these people will say, they'll literally say, "Oh, I've had people say it to me, like, oh, well, what issues? Give me link." And it's like, why should I have to even provide that? Aren't you the one that is supposed to claim that you know about evolution? It's like,
Mhm.
how do you not know the flaws in evolution? It's like, so you don't know when they lied. Like, even when Austin Sims, I think when he was on the channel, he said, "Oh, well, Piltdown Man." They admit to Piltdown Man, but they don't talk about Nebraska Man or Heidelberg Man or Java Man or Boxgrove Man or
Mhm.
Lucy, even. Just the total lie of Lucy. And it's like Australopithecus, another lie. It's either a human or an ape. That's it. There's nothing in between. It could be an extinct type of ape, an ape that we don't see around. So it's like, they will see evidence, and this is what I notice how, when I said somebody's influencing ethics from somewhere else, when
Mhm.
he at first came on and I showed him those artifacts, and he was all open to it. He said, yeah, he goes, that looks like it's been machined, that it is, we would use a computer guiding imaging to create something like this. It's clearly gives signatures of machining. Next thing, after he talked with them, and they they put fuel in his tank and put the battery pack in him of evolution to juice him back up. He's like, oh, well, it appears to look machined and all that. I'm like, okay. So now when you see something that clearly gives evidence of machining, when you see some of these rock artifacts that look like they've been planed, you see drill marks, you see
Mhm.
all of these things. So you're seeing evidence of machining, and you're saying, no, it just appears to be that way, right? But then they
Right.
find a bone, a skull bone, and they don't say it appears to look similar to a human. Also they don't say, they say, no, this is a transitional fossil. Look, this turned into this magically.
Wow.
They lie. So we see how easily we can point that out and say, bro, are you like, it's like, what's wrong with you?
But think of the difference. They're talking about a bone and jumping to conclusions, all excited about what it could be, versus you're showing pictures of an actual structure
Hmm.
drilled to precision or created by with accurate precision and understanding. And they're saying, I don't know. It's like, wait a minute, you're looking at a pyramid or you're looking at a temple or a castle, and you don't know, but the bone has all this information. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It shows the bias. It shows the bias right
Yes.
there.
It's a very good example of the bias to say, you don't
Mhm.
want to say that something clearly that's showing evidence of machining. You don't want to admit that. You want to say, well, it looks like that.
Mhm.
when this skull looks like something, you won't say it looks like something. You'll say, no, it is.
Yep.
It is the transitional fossil. This is showing a progression. And it's like, it's like, it's so biased. I saw a little bit of a debate between that girl who looks like Carl Sagan in drag. Gut Sick Gibbon is her
Sick
channel.
and drag.
Yeah, she's just nutcase. Erica, I think her name is. And she's so-called debating, but really it's a conversation with Michael Cremo, the author of Forbidden Archaeology, and he's very old in the interview. Michael's got to be in his 80s by now. When I met him in 2017 or 2018, I drove to New Jersey to meet him. I mean, it was worth it. And he was still kind of young. I took a picture with him, three pictures, talked to him about, some of the books he wrote. He signed both of my, I have the hardcover of Forbidden Archaeology, and I have Forbidden Archaeology's Impact. So when he wrote Forbidden Archaeology, he said that book, which documented every Western archaeological find, and not just in English, in German and other languages. So other archaeological finds from different Western countries. And it took him 8 years, him and Richard Thompson. And so they documented everything, which included the stuff that they don't include in evolution, like finding a gold chain embedded in coal, inside of coal. So this is the coal they're saying is millions of years old. So either it's not millions of years old, or we have a chain embedded in coal that's millions of years old. A cup. I forgot the metal that the cup was made from. Again, in coal, inside of a seam of coal. As they dug deeper, I think it was in either parts of Texas or some part of America where they ran into stone brick walls at like depths of like 50 feet.
Wow.
So this is giving also into why I think a lot of people came up with the Tartarian thing, which that might not be the proper name, but it does show that, hey, wait a minute, there's some type of ancient structures that are built like brick walls that were covered by hundreds of feet, at least 100 feet. I think one brick wall was like 110 feet below the surface.
Look at that.
And this is fine because they're mining. And so San Francisco, they show stuff like that. Like they dug out the mudslide or whatever it was that covered basically the city that was previously there and just built
in San Francisco.
Yeah, they're saying San Francisco is another one. This is the Tartarian people that are saying this. Like those are the guy that I had on. What was it? Guy Peterson. He was one that he deals with that. Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. He wrote the thing. Christopher says, yeah, optical bias, man, bias confirmation. Exact. AC from Casey. Good to see you, brother. Always a pleasure, man. He says it's hard to debate someone who will lie constantly. Man, they constantly lie. And as we were saying in the title of the stream, does debating make us smarter? So we're starting to see that. We presented a lot of evidence earlier that it's not even worth debating, because debating keeps us arguing with each other. And we would just present evidence to say, look, let's just have a conversation. Because like you said, they will always lie, because their whole goal is just to win. It's not about learning. They don't want to learn. They want to lie until they can say, well, look, they won, but that doesn't prove if something's true or not. It's like the person that screams, or the person that, it goes back into a real immature state of mind. And it's all over YouTube. It's all over these other social media sites. All these people want to do is debate and argue over things instead of looking at the situation. And especially now, to look at the situation and say, this is madness, what's happening. I mean, the criminality in throughout the country, throughout the world, even the tax. Oh my goodness, I mean, when somebody really looks at that, if teenagers were really taught tax, there'd be a revolution overnight. I mean, they would say, wait a second. So if somebody's working for 30 bucks an hour, they got to pay more than $10 in tax. They work for 30, they're not even getting 20. And even if you're getting 20, if you're lucky, um, in New York, it's like, oh, it's like, what the heck is that? It's like, wait a minute. So you're taking basically a third of the money that I'm earning for.
Yeah, brutal.
And somebody made a video on YouTube, and he said that if you live in New York and you make $1 million at an organization, and they pay you that way, it's different if you're 1099ing it. If you make $1.5 million on a 1099, I think you pay a third, so you'll get to keep $1 million roughly. If you make that on the books on like a paycheck type, they take a little more than half. You get 747,000. So instead of 750, which is half of $1.5 million, you get a little less. You get 3,000 less. It is so blatantly criminal that I'm very shocked that people put up with this. But again, in other states, some people don't have the ability to make that type of money. New York State, Texas, they can make money too, but Texas is extremely corrupt. We do see that. It's the military state, has a ridiculous amount of military bases, just like Florida. And
But New York is really going in the dumps. I mean, they've overplayed their hand, I think.
it's crazy. It's really
And
California.
remember, they're in a deficit too. They're in a budget deficit with all the taxes they have because too much corruption.
Nobody wants to go into Manhattan unless they have. My friend, he told me the other day that he's like, he goes, look, he wears a stab-proof vest when he gets on the subway to go into Manhattan, and it's really messed up because I mean,
it's not the same city. You remember? I know that.
Yeah. And this is a big dude. He's like 6'3", 260 pounds. I mean, he's not a small guy. He's a big guy. And it's
all you have to do is look at this. Look at from the 70s and 80s, even the 90s of New York. It's packed with people. Now, I remember last time I went there, it's not the same city. It's not so packed anymore.
Yeah, they're definitely not. Yeah, people don't want to. They really don't want to be there. I don't want to go there. I haven't been to New York in a few years, and
you're right in Brooklyn, right?
I mean, you're right. It's like a jump. And a jump away. I mean, they had like a get together there because my friend owns a dispensary, and a few other people I know that have dispensaries in Brooklyn also have one in Manhattan because you're allowed to open 3. So they're making money, but it's a hustle now because everybody with the economy and stuff. And I didn't even go to Manhattan. I was just like, yeah, I don't want to visit her dispensary over there. I visited the one she had in Brooklyn, and even in Brooklyn, the one she had was in kind of ghetto area. I think it was north of Bedford-Stuyvesant. I forgot the exact part, but getting toward the Williamsburg Bridge, in between that, and I think it was the Brooklyn Bridge, if I remember correctly. Like, yeah, I don't really go in those areas too much, but yeah, to go to Manhattan or even the Bronx, like a friend of mine, he has family up there, and he still goes to the Bronx, because that's basically like just northern Manhattan, basically. And yeah, nobody really wants to go there, man. Nobody, especially on the subway. They're just like, nah, they're not trying to go there, man. Good to see you, White Heat. What's up? Says hello, Max and X. And
good to see you, White Heat.
Yeah, man. It just
yeah. When I drove the subway years, this is like 5, 7, maybe 10 years ago. I felt like I needed a pistol. Down here in Florida, I don't feel like I need to carry it with me. But in New York, I really felt like I needed one.
Yeah, they're really messed up here. If you have a license in Florida, they won't respect that in New York City. They've arrested a lot of people. It's horrible. Yeah, it's really hard. And this is where you need it. I mean, you look at what's going on. I mean, the subway is not the E train, which I think runs from Manhattan to Queens. It's all underground. That's the one subway that never comes above ground. So there's, because my brother-in-law worked for New York City Transit for like 30 years, so a little over 30. So he used to teach me everything about the subways and which ones go above ground, how long they stay above ground before they go back under. Um, yeah, it's just and actually I ran into a guy the other day that works for the railroad that goes out into Long Island, and he was telling me about he was a really cool guy. It was in a writers group actually, and
Mhm.
went to a library group. And it wasn't really like, I guess because I didn't show the dating books, but I had like Spellcaster and Secret
Mhm.
Words, and I just felt like they were more like fictional writers. So they would write like just make stuff up like, hey, these two guys are in a restaurant having a conversation, or one guy
Mhm.
did magical stuff, and like writing about fantasy. So I was just like, well, I write like I tried to explain to one guy, I said, there's a genre that's in between, it seems to be fiction and nonfiction. They call it speculative. And he was like, well, I could see it already, the arrogance come out, because he's like, well, if it's not truthful, it's fiction. And I'm like, well, then what about theoretical stuff? I said, it's not fiction, and you can't say it's fake, and you can't say it's true because it's theoretical.
Right.
So it could be not real, but it could also be proven to be fact later on. So that would be the speculative category, which they put in a lot of I think they put in a lot of conspiracies in there too, because they've had a lot of that surface, like a lot of people publish. Alexa says, okay, seriously, why are most men homo? This doesn't make sense for reproduction.
Mhm.
Remember Bernie Getz in
Why most been homo?
White Heat. You're gonna be amazed at this. I met Bernie Getz. Now,
Really?
yes, and this is the story, man. It's hilarious. Bernie Getz, that subway incident happened in 1984. I was a kid. And it was like, I saw it on the news. I didn't, we didn't, I wasn't in that. I think it happened in Manhattan. Uh, so, it was like, okay, horrible incident, whatever. Now, of course, they were trying to rob him or something. And so we see that happen in 84. In 94, a little like around 94, 95, I was training with a guy. That's when I met Hoist Gracie, and the UFC happened in 93. So a year later, I met Hickson Gracie, and then I met Hoist and them. And Henzo Gracie has an academy. I don't know if he still has it in Manhattan. So I had a friend that used to train with me, and he was dating a girl whose father was a top detective that was on the Bernard Getz case 10 years prior in 84. So he
Hmm.
was dating his daughter. And he was telling me, hey, man, the girl that I'm dating, her father is like a top detective. And, he was telling me that when they raided Bernard Getz's apartment, that they were finding, because the CIA raided it too, that they were finding these microphones the size of finishing nails. So very slim, tiny pin-like microphones. So when they were saying that he was working for the CIA and doing these experiments, this guy has proven this to be true. So he's saying, yeah, man. So I'm thinking, hey, great, we're training, so I didn't really care too much about it. And he goes, yeah, man. He goes, this guy, he makes, he's making like 200K a year. And this is in 94. So it's 10 years after the incident. So I brush it off. I don't see Rich for, we trained for a few years and then we lost content. He's still around. But I haven't talked to him in shoot like 30 years or more, and or 25 years at least. And so we lose contact. 10 more years goes by to 2004, and I meet a woman who wrote a book about vegetarianism, Pamela. And she goes to like this Earth Save thing. Now, this chick that I was dating used to go to the Earth Save thing. It was like the whole vegan vegetarian thing. So I went there with her. I met Pam, and we hit it off. We were really cool. She goes, look, I have a place that I rent in One Union Square. Union Square in Manhattan is where they have all the protests. I think it's around 14th Street. And oh man, I forgot the exact location, but it's Union Square. Anybody can look it up. And So it's 1 Union Square. So I'm like, man, how do you even? It's like the price to rent something like this, but it's a real small office, and it doesn't have a bathroom. They have to go out and use the public bathroom in the rest of the building. And I see she splits the office with an inventor, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I split the office with Bernie. He's a really nice guy, right?" So I don't even think of nothing with the name. So because I'm thinking I've always known him as Bernard Getz, from the news thing. So I look over and I see the mail on the desk and it says Bernard Getz. And I'm like, there's no way this is the same guy, right? And he has his scientific equipment there on the other side of the office. And she has a whole bunch of like books on vegetarianism, on factory farming. And she goes, look, anything you need, you can just pull it out here, borrow it, and just bring it back. She goes, I'm giving you access to the whole library. So I was like, okay, cool. I really appreciate that. And one day I was there, and who do you know shows up? Bernard Getz. And
Really?
she's like, hey, Bernie's here. I'd like to introduce you to him. And I looked over, and it was him. He had the glasses. He's a tall guy.
Mm.
And I was like, and he was very friendly. He was working on a magnetic device called the magnetron. And he goes, here, put this wrench in the middle of it. And I put it, and it's suspended through the magnetic field. I think he eventually patented that. And that was the thing they had in these novelty stores with a globe. It suspends,
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
So years later, that's what it was formed into. So what Rich had told me 10 years prior about the detective finding the finishing nails that were microphones, everything started. I was like, holy smoke, he really was an inventor. And this guy was, Bernie, he was really friendly. He let me like check the machine, and he was showing me different like inventions that he had with working with magnetics and things, hooked up to strings, and how the magnet would pull the pin. And it was very interesting. He was a really nice guy. And I remember telling him something, that an incident I had in New York with it was like a crime. Somebody tried to rob me, and he goes, "You're licensed to carry a gun." He goes, forget what they're saying. He goes, don't even. He goes, this is to protect your life. And I was like, well, I said, if you don't get a license, I said, they'll give you like a year. Back then, I think it was in the 90s, it was a year. Now it's like 3.5 years if they get you something that's not. It's ridiculous. It's just any gun.
I'm a gun owner. I know what it's like to be a gun owner, and the people who don't own guns, they think it's a bigger deal than it is. It's a tool. That's all the damn thing is. You got to be responsible with it.
Yeah,
but it's a tool.
You already know. I feel that any gun law is unconstitutional. I should not have to have a license to have a gun. But I'm like, okay, I'm not going to carry it because they will put you in the cell for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
So it's like, it's tough. It's really messed up because it's like in a city with so much crime, it's like, come on, man,
And you live in a city with a ton of guns too, I might add. Guns are everywhere in your city. Exactly. It's just in the wrong hands.
Yeah. So it's like, anybody who, and this is the argument where I see a lot of liberals or a lot of people on the left, which have a lot of good stuff that they'll say, look, man, of course you say, okay, yeah, this does make sense. But once they get to the Second Amendment thing, and they're like, oh, well, they think that people shouldn't have that. And I'm thinking to myself, are you nuts? It's like, so you're telling me the government, the cops, you're okay with them having guns?
Yep.
You not having guns? I'm like, you got to be out of your mind. I'm like, so in other words, let's just say a mob overruns the police. Now you have no way to defend yourself against that mob.
That's right.
You're depending on the police having the weapons and saying, oh, well, we don't need guns. I'm like, that's like a height of ignorance.
It is. That's why you can't go with them. They're really ignorant.
You can't really talk. It's just, it defies logic. When I think about that, it's like, wait, so you're telling me you trust the government with guns and not yourself?
Yeah.
You think it's kind of like the last stream when we talked about the fiction of government. It creates this type of mental thinking to where it's like they believe in this fictional entity is going to protect them when it's totally there to oppress them. It's there to enslave them. And it's
Also, a lot of liberals are very feminist too, and I think that helps with the control.
big
I'm
time.
not trying to be biased, but and I'm not saying I'm just saying I got to keep it real. More women are easier to control than men. I see that every day in the political system. They're a lot easier to control. They really go with the flow, you
Our
know.
political system is really
Mhm.
it is just such a method of controlling people. The
It is.
political, like we talked about it yesterday on the stream, the whole fiction of government creates the other fiction of authority, which creates these fictional laws. And when somebody tells me that, I tell them the Constitution makes you free the way a get well card makes you better.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Your action is what makes you free. I don't need a Second Amendment or First Amendment to tell me I have the freedom of speech. It's like Ice-T said, freedom of speech, just watch what you say.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, in other countries, and in other countries, you can say what you want. You just got to face the consequences of what you say.
You can always say what you want, you know.
Exactly. You can always say what you want. The person that tells you that they're giving you the freedom of speech, that's the criminal.
Hmm.
To tell us, oh, you have the freedom. I don't need no paper to tell me I have the freedom of speech or to tell me that I have the right to bear arms. I'm born with that. First they tell you you're born with inalienable of rights, right? To where the government can't, oppress you. And then they come out with all of these amendments and all this other crap saying it's like, wait a minute, but what did you say right over here? I don't need this other thing
Hmm.
because I'm born in a divine state.
Yeah.
I'm born under divinity. So what is this thing about, oh, well, the amendments? And it's like, are you nuts? And then what was I think it's the third or fourth amendment about the, having to, we're not supposed to have to house soldiers during peacetime, you know. So
Was it the third or fourth? I can't remember.
yeah,
I think it was the third. I think it was third.
third amendment.
It's in there, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's either the third or the fourth
Mhm.
um
Oh,
amendment.
the fifth is the right to keep silent. I know that.
Yeah, the fifth is plead the fifth. And even that, it's like I don't need them to tell me that. Peacetime, yeah, it's the third. Peacetime, complete prohibition on quartering soldiers in any home. So during peacetime, even in wartime, you can't tell me I'm supposed to house a soldier. It's like, what are you, nuts?
Hmm.
It's like this is why we're supposed to have the arms, because it's like in
Right.
Switzerland, when you serve in Switzerland, you get to keep your rifle. I would
That's
love
right.
to have my M16 when I served. I would love to have, man, I would be just elated to have the M60 that I had when I was in there, or the
Right.
M203 grenade launcher. Oh my goodness, that would be happiness to say I have that with rounds to fire. Oh my goodness, that would be great.
And that's what would bring peace.
Yeah,
That's what would bring peace is the barrel of a gun,
it, it,
not
it just
not the humanity of people, because
you
it doesn't exist. It
yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yeah. You brought up the excellent point when you told them Civil War didn't happen because they said, hey, it's a good idea. It happened through the
Yeah.
battle of a gun. And surprisingly, he just glazed that over. That's
Yeah.
the thing, to glaze that over. It's like, that's why the conversation is better than the debate.
Mhm.
Alexa says debates are only there to zombify people. Exactly. Look at the presidential debates, more like puppet. Yeah, exactly. Puppet denial debates, man. It's a waste of time, makes you think there's two sides, and it
Mhm.
also keeps you in a state of perpetual immaturity, of fighting, we looked up the definition of debate just to have it, to where debate is from, old French, Latin, to beat down,
Mhm.
to fight, to contend. It comes from debauch, debatter, the battery, to basically beat something, to fence, with the fight, the fencing. Um, the Latin root is batuere, and
Mhm.
also the source of physical strike based words, batter or combat. So when we look at that word, it's like a lot of people don't know the meaning, and this is how we teach each other. Say, yeah, we debate, and then they'll lead in with the argument you presented. I didn't present an argument. I'm presenting evidence to have a conversation about that evidence, and now it has a whole better energy to it. you know. White Heat says the USG and their AI data centers are fixing the pummeled. Yeah, man, the workforce, the environment, and the Constitution. Yeah, and the Constitution again. It doesn't make us free. It's like a get well card making you better, man. We make
You
ourselves
wonder
free.
what's going to happen to a place like New York because unlike the 70s and 80s, do we really need a city center anymore? You know what I'm saying? With AI and the technology, do people really need to be in a city for commerce?
It it's changing so much that I mean, I don't. I've seen these videos with people that have the AI centers in the country and the hum. I mean, it's literally terrorism. It's environmental terrorism, where you're hearing like machinery running
Mhm.
24 hours a day in the background. And these people live in rural areas. I had saved one of the videos, and I'm like, this is horrible. And White Heat is right. It's a threat to all organic life, man.
I agree, 100%. And
Yeah,
we can't stop it though. That's the bad part. That's just keeping it real, not negative. That's
yeah.
keeping
It's
it
like,
real.
where's the evolutionists on that? You know?
Nowhere, nowhere. Yeah. I mean, and you know what? That objective ethics, I like him, but his thought of thinking, honestly, that's what gets people killed.
Yeah, I think he's being influenced by the other guys. It's like
Yeah.
because he has a good heart, and
Mhm.
even in saying that, he might go against and say, "Oh, what do you mean a good heart?" Like because his whole thing is mental based. That's the evolution infection. To
Right.
say, "Oh, it's only thinking." It's like no, feeling is there as well. We can feel things more sometimes than we can think them, and
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah,
I
we
mean, I remember telling my daughter about going out certain places. I said, "Look, people will attack you. You can get great. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Things will happen." And he said, "Well, my mom tells me nothing like that will happen." Well,
Wow.
who's being more loving? What's keeping the person safer? Having the faith in humanity that they won't do that to my daughter, or saying humanity's pretty bad out there, you got to watch out. I
Yeah,
think it's me
yeah,
because that's
exactly.
reality.
Yeah,
That's reality, and he's not living in reality when he says
yeah,
about, yeah, the moral objectives of
yeah.
human beings. It's not reality.
He's not seeing it. And you're the better parent in saying, look, be careful.
Yeah,
It's better. You're telling her uh basically an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure.
right.
After it happens, it's too late. It's like people
Exactly.
can be scarred for a lifetime. So
They
it's
are
like,
scarred for a lifetime.
yeah,
There's no ifs about. They're
yeah.
done.
It's like be careful. Don't trust in humanity, and that's a
Exactly.
smart thing to do. Evolution, it's just ridiculous. Alexis says, "Will we ever do a JFK stream? We always do focus on modern 2000s conspiracy, but I want to learn more about older ones." Yeah, in the future, man, I could see definitely doing something like that. I got a
Hmm.
StreamYard thing. It's always I'm trying to keep it going, man. Scribe helped me out with getting the I'm
But
seeing if
so
I
many people do that too, though, don't you? Wouldn't you agree, MD? Like a lot, that's kind of saturated a little bit.
yeah, it is a lot of saturation. Like I would like to I'll touch on it a little because there's really not much and I know Alexis, I was supposed to do a Civil War stream because I definitely got to do that. I had mentioned that you brought that up and that was months ago. So I do need to do that about older conspiracies because you have a very good point with the Civil War thing. Could have been just like population control type of thing because if we really look into it, it was more like Lincoln. A lot of the stuff he said was not to to really directly get rid of slavery. So it was
Yeah.
sort of like one of the reasons is they did that was so they can continue to do business with Britain because Britain
Yes.
wouldn't do business unless you had abolished slavery. So they were more about colonialism, but not slavery. So
Could
they
have
were
been about the monetary system too, because they were using Confederate dollars, which I'm sure they didn't care for. They wanted to be under one monetary system.
exactly. So we see that it had much more to do with business to say, okay,
Yeah.
we need to get this off the books. So we'll still do it off the books, but we can't do it on the books. And during the
There were
war.
slaves in Rhode Island, aren't there? There were a lot of slaves in the
Oh yeah.
Northeast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Virginia was split for that. I think West Virginia was based on more
Hmm.
economic instead of slavery. So like lumber and farming and stuff like that. And the main Virginia was slave based. So I think that was, yeah, I think it was West was the industrial based. So, and that was the big split, which made Virginia split into West Virginia and Virginia. So
Mhm.
we look at stuff like that. We look at the War of 1812 when they burnt the White House down and Madison had to run. And those were basically freed black men who were enslaved and also British blacks that were fighting free, because the British were like, look, you fight with us, you're free. You don't got to worry. And then they relocated those people down in the Caribbean to keep them safe after, the war, as they made it down the coastline. So it's a real rich history as we look into it. And yeah, we'll get into that definitely, Alexis. I look forward to that, man.
I mean, I know you don't like him too much, or I don't know how you feel about it, but Thomas Sowell just has some great work.
Yeah, no, he has
Just
some
like,
good stuff. He Thomas Sowell has some good stuff. The only thing, like, he has great stuff. The only things that he has that I notice, it's like he gets a little minion of the statish, kind of like the Clarence
Mhm.
Thomas, who just they
Mhm.
use him as the scapegoat to do laws that turn back the clock on the progress that black people have made. So
Mhm.
Clarence Thomas just did something recently about that. I forgot exactly what it was, but they used
But
him.
his, oh, okay, because his historical research has been phenomenal. I think
Mhm.
it,
I
it
mean,
all lines
guys
up.
like Thurgood Marshall, they've done a little more. Like when they tried to imprison those black soldiers that were,
Mhm.
I think, loading explosives. They had them loading explosives during World War II, I think it was. And when there
Mhm.
was a mishap and a lot of guys got killed from an explosion, they were like, "Look, we're not doing this," and they tried to sentence them to like 15 years. And I think 50 of them, Thurgood Marshall had to step in. So they would Sowell, his thing about with the welfare. I mean, what if people are handicapped? You have to give them. You have to help them.
Sure, sure. No,
Um,
I'm sure not everything is going to be good,
yeah,
but
like
like one thing about,
yeah,
oh, not him, but historically, it wasn't from Sowell, but I found it from somebody else because people always ask the questions, why didn't the slaves revolt when they were on the ships, against the traders? Because they were obviously outnumbered. And it's like on the slave trade when they picked them up on the west coast of Africa, they made sure to get people from different tribes, so
yeah,
they
but
didn't speak the
also
same language.
it's like it also chains. If you're in chains, yeah,
Right.
they did have rebellions like the Amistad,
Hmm.
uh, but
But they couldn't speak with each other too. It was like,
yeah, so that separates them. They were
yeah,
prisoners of war because,
they
like,
were.
they're not going to go in there and catch slaves. They're going to buy them from uh, the other African nations that are
Right.
saying, okay, So yeah, it's a lot more to the story that people don't look
Right.
into
It was
and
already
know
well
about that.
established through the Arab
Yeah,
slave
yeah.
trade. Yeah, because most of
So
South
so
America was all through the Arabs.
yeah, yeah, we definitely see that. And that's something they don't talk about a lot, how brutal
Mhm.
the Arab slave trade was in North Africa. And that was still going on during Thomas Jefferson. That was when he
Mhm.
sent the Navy to crush the remaining bits of the Ottoman Empire because they kept taking over American ships, and they basically said that it was because of Islam. They said that, look, Islam gives them that right. He was like, all right. He goes, now he's going to send a Navy there and
Mhm.
crush them. And so when you look into it more, you learn so much more. But yeah,
I think
we
they even
do.
had Irish slaves, the Ottoman Empire.
Oh,
Irish
big
slaves.
time. Yeah, big time. There was a lot that whole Barbary pirate thing was
Mhm.
the word slave, I think, stems from Slavic. So
Does. It
yeah,
does.
when you look at it, it was basically a lot of white slavery that people don't want to acknowledge. They want to keep it
Mhm.
on a scapegoat. Oh no, it was only black. It was like, nah, there was slaves of all different colors. Rome had no prejudice. They're like, look, man, we're gonna slave everybody,
Yeah,
white, black,
everybody.
all type of stuff. And Alexis says also the Union and Confederate was much closer battle, yes, than the UK against farmers. Exactly, much closer. You're absolutely. They found a Confederate submarine. I got to
Oh,
look.
I remember that in South Carolina.
You're looking at crazy stuff that is in history. AC says most men aren't fit to be husband, and most aren't fit to be fathers. Outcast of society. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, bro. That's truth. White Heat says There's the issue of psychotronic weapons. That is true. That exists. All types of wavelengths designed to disrupt biorhythmic telemetry. I advise investments in protective gear and any available counterfeit measures. I hear you, man. In my opinion, staying within the guidelines of YouTube, they had the thing with the tinfoil hat. Now, tinfoil is different from aluminum foil, so when you look at this, there are ways to protect. Like we spoke of this on a previous stream when we brought up, I think it was about, is your brain safe or something. On the thumbnail it has a guy and you see like he's getting wavelengths coming in from the radio towers, and we mentioned Dr. Jose Delgado and the psychotronic weapons that to influence apathy, aggression in the monkeys. And now, I mean, the amount of electronic weapons that we see, LRAD, which is the sonic weapon that is supposed to like shake the water in your body and just make you just, basically drop to your knees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a horrible, horrible things, all meant for the government to control the population.
Yeah.
So when I look at this whole thing about, like, you got a good point, the whole objective ethic thing, it's like, bro, come on.
Where's humanity's demand to man? I don't see it.
Yeah, it's just, it really gets to where I wonder what their thoughts on government would be, or what his thoughts would be, because it seems like it's a group. It's definitely that group of atheists posing to be agnostic. Some of them openly say they're atheists, but a lot of them are anti-natalist and stuff like that. And it just
Well, these guys think Bernie Sanders is going to save them. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like they hate the government, whoever's in it that they don't like, but then at the same time they think their vote can change the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's like they're really lost. You know what I mean?
It's crazy, man. I mean, the whole thing of, like, a long time ago, I remember there was a radio show I did with a guy, Austin Thomas. We used to be on Blog Talk Radio. I think the last time was around 2016, and I was his co-host for a little bit because he had a show, and I go, sure, I'd be more than happy to assist you on that. And he was like, yeah, any gun law is unconstitutional. It's like, I don't need a gun law. You can't tell me about that. Even the Constitution, I don't need something. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me I'm free. It's great that we have it. Okay, great. That's beautiful. But just in case, I know I'm born that way. I'm born free. I was born free, born to die. It makes life worth living, the finite ability to it. And that was something we talked about earlier. The finite ability to life. If we see that it's finite, so either way we look at it, if the evolutionists, they're trying to own forever, and the deity religions try to own forever, to say that after this life it will be forever, either in their crime scene called heaven, the fairy tale of hell, or the nothing of evolution. And it's like, so you guys can clearly see that this is a finite life, but you're telling me that what comes next is going to be forever? That doesn't make sense. That does not make sense. Even if it was like, okay, lights are out, and then maybe we go into another realm somehow, or if somebody does believe in some deity-based thing where they go to the crime scene disguised as paradise called heaven, or a hell that isn't as bad as war. Because I would ask them, like, so no innocent people are in hell, right? Okay, so what's happening over in the Middle East has to be worse than hell because innocent people are dying, right? So isn't that worse? So it just common sense to say, wait a second, something's different about this. And I can understand dimensions if it's something like that, the way like in the Superman movie, they put them in the phantom zone, trapezoid, and they're just, floating around space or whatever, or trapped in a type of dimension. That would make more sense than the whole burning pits of hell. That reminds me of saying, well, maybe it's some type of inner earth thing. Maybe it's, how did they even get that concept,
That's a human being's interpretation of these other dimensions. So I wouldn't put much salt in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it definitely will.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely human beings, but I like to always say, okay, is there something in that belief that might have, where it came from, that might be based in some type of truth? Not saying it's true, but based in the truth, to say the afterlife. So it's saying, okay, the afterlife might be good, it might not be good, and it's depending on your actions. And
Well, we can agree that I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to say we can agree that there's evil in this world that goes unpunished. I mean, people
yeah,
who would
yeah.
never get caught.
Yeah,
We can
and we
agree that that
defined that.
exists.
Yeah, we defined evil very well in the last stream with
Hmm.
Jeremy Locke's book, "The End of All Evil." Anything trying to limit you, your potential, your infinite potential, trying to
Hmm.
keep you from being free. That could easily be defined as evil. And
Right. And you
yeah,
know what the problem is with that? The problem is with that is we have a sense of justice and a
yeah,
desire
yeah,
for justice.
yeah,
Why do we have that? Why is that there? That makes it a problem. If we didn't have that desire or that instinct in our metaphysical being, then it wouldn't bother us so much that
yeah,
evil wins all
yeah.
the time.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Alexis says, "Did Germany win World War One or World War Two? And what was the true purpose of the war?" I
Good
think,
question.
yeah, go ahead if you want to. Yeah,
No, no, no. I said just good question. I want you to
yeah.
answer it.
To me, it seems that they definitely won World War Two. I mean, it seems like they're ruling in secrecy, and the purpose of the war, I think, is to destroy archaeological evidence. So I'm seeing that theory makes more and more sense. That they say that they melted down a lot of the bells in Germany, saying that they needed the steel. Same thing, I think, in America. So the church bells that could have been used to repel something, whether it's repelling some non-physical thing that would be called demonic or some type of spirit, ringing those bells were eliminated. And also the bombing of Dresden, the bombing of Laos during Vietnam. I mean, the Laos wasn't even involved in the war. The most bombed country to date, that's been documented. And Laos contains those gigantic stone jars. So it could have contained other stuff. So World War II could have been something to destroy a lot of evidence, like the two gigantic bombs, if they were even nuclear, or they could have been carpet bombs like Dirty Benny. I hope Dirty Benny's all right. It's been a while since he's hopped in the chat. Um,
You know what I think of when I think of World War II? I think of Orson Welles, believe it or not, because he has an
yeah,
interview, you can see it on YouTube, where he, as when he was younger, was at a dinner with the Mustache Man. And he said, they asked him, what was he like? He said, he was very unimpressed with him. He's pretty quiet, didn't say a lot, just kind of just
mhm,
sat there. He
yeah,
what it just has agent written all over it. There's
oh
something, he was just a puppet of another system going on.
yeah, yeah,
That's what it
definitely.
seems
Hitler,
like.
Hitler was an incel, man. No, that's I've said it before. It's like he was basically an incel, and
Hmm.
we already see the anger that comes from that. Uh, Probably in the closet, like when you
Yeah.
brought up the pink swastika, I could
Yes.
clearly see these guys are all wearing a pink swastika. They're
And
all
you could see it too in some of the clubs, the Leatherman back in the days, they'd have the swastika all over the place.
yep, big time BDSM type of
Hmm.
straight out of Pulp Fiction, the Gimp, Uh,
Even in the movie, what was it, Silence of the Lambs, when they show that Buffalo Bill is
oh
where he
yeah,
was living,
yeah,
he had the sheets with the swastika on it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like they
yeah.
know, they know.
Yeah, they're definitely straight pink swastika. If anybody that's an excellent read too. White Heat says the Navajo concept of the evil one, holy people, and great spirit resonates with me. Yeah, that's a deep, very deep concept and very, very true. Brother Ali, good to see you, man. He says, coming out of the G closet. What's up, bro? Good to see you, man. Always a pleasure. Yeah, man. World War II has some deep stuff. We will get into that. That I have to. I think I did a stream a long time ago. Did the Nazis win World War II? But we'll revisit that and yeah, we'll go through it a little deeper because that
Sure.
is a deep conversation.
He
Yeah,
definitely put him in a position to be destroyed. That's
yeah,
no question about it. To
yeah.
go against the US and Russia at the same time, he knew he was going to win that war.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was just, yeah. And then they don't talk about a lot of the, it could be the purpose of the war. I think, yeah, it could have been to destroy some type of technology, also archaeology. Russia has these gigantic, uh, what looks to be man-made stones, and you're looking at things that are, I think, over 100 tons. So let me see the giant megaliths of Russia, and they are definitely preventing people. Like they were charging people a lot of money to go see them. And it says several controversial rock formations and authentic ancient structures spanning from Siberia to the Caucasus Mountains. While internet fringe theories suggest they are artificial remnants of a lost prehistoric civilization, mainstream geologists attribute most of the largest examples to spectacular natural erosion, which we know that mainstream geologists are full of crap, that they will
Mhm.
lie. So the fringe theories actually make more sense. But the fact that these formations span from such a large area, I think that they might have did something to destroy them. One is the Gornaya Sharia of Mount Kailamlam, um, that is Siberia. So that one they're saying is located in Kemerovo region of southern Siberia, famous for its massive hyperlinear blocks of granite. That might have been the one that I've seen, and it doesn't look like we were saying when we looked at the underwater structure. Uh, it's like you look at the underwater structure and you start to say to yourself like, wait a second, this doesn't look um this doesn't look natural. This looks man-made. I'm trying to save one of the pictures here to see if I can save it, because
And what do you
there,
think about Bimini? Because that also too doesn't look man-made. Goes on to Bimini
yeah,
Island.
the Bimini definitely, they
Hmm.
have some that, yeah, I could understand that, somebody saying, well, they might be uh man-made or not. Uh there's one here that, let me see. Let me see if I can upload it. Brother Ali, brother, thank you for the support, bro. Ali says, mass debate and lubricate our brains with wisdom. Yeah, brother, you know it, bro.
Yeah,
Keep it
yeah.
going. And thank you,
You
bro.
know, be another good topic is the Bermuda Triangle. That might be an interesting one
Yeah,
to
yeah,
discuss.
that I could see definitely being interesting.
Mhm.
This picture is from that actual giant megaliths of Siberia. So when they say
Oh,
it looks like, now some of them do look like it could be natural, but this one here, this block here might
hmm.
not be natural. There's a possibility that this could be some part of some ancient eroded giant blocks.
It looks man-made. It looks like it eroded, but that's a little too
Yeah, it's a
precise.
little too, yeah, exactly. So when they say these things, and then mainstream geologists, once they say mainstream, it's like lamestream geologists, claim that. So it's like, yeah, it definitely. White Heat says Operation Paperclip and Gladio repurposed the advanced scientific mind control and battle tactics of Hitler's Germany. Yeah, yeah, it definitely, the fact that they have what appears to be, I think it was the Bell UFO from Nazis. Let me see
Oh
if,
yeah, I've heard about that.
if they have the pictures. I think they have some old ones. Trying to see if they got any legit ones. So that's the thing, because when you look at them, they look very similar to the Vimanas of the ancient Indian sculptures. So it's like
Hmm.
Bell UFO looks kind of like the Vimanas, and then the that's where they were. So the Nazis went into India to
Yeah,
find some of this ancient technology and maybe
they even had a. Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna
yeah.
say they have a sketch of a stealth bomber, Nazi Germany at that time.
Wow.
That's a fact. I mean, you can look up stealth bomber in Nazi Germany, and they said they were planning to create that already. So they definitely had advanced technology.
Let me see. Stealth bomber, Nazi Germany. Yeah, I think Nazi Doomsday. The fact that that was there, the fact that the the Confederate submarine,
Hmm.
you're looking at, wait a minute, so submarines going back that far? It's like
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder. It really does, man. It goes into some deep stuff, saying that hey, um, this is a whole other level of research that
It's,
needs to be looked into. It really does need to be looked into. Those megaliths of Siberia are really, they're fascinating. They're very fascinating to say, what are these things? Some of the walls, and I'm just trying to make sure I get the correct ones because that one definitely comes from there. They also found some megalith walls in Montana, and I couldn't believe that. I was like, wait a second, how? I mean, these things are popping up all over, and giant megaliths of Montana.
hmm,
Maybe that one. And it's a wall, Sage Mountain Center. So now, when you look at this, megaliths of Montana, man-made structures of the giants or quirk of nature. So the fact that they're saying, okay, this is a nature, they have it from Reddit, but I'm going to see if I can save it here. So
and
it's like,
I'm,
okay, so just like the one we looked at, right? And it looks like it looks like it looks man-made. I mean, this structure right here, it,
does.
yeah, it doesn't look, and that's from Wikipedia, so the copyright is free. So we're looking at that from Siberia, looks man-made. This is from Montana. So
Wow.
that does not look natural. I mean, I can understand if they try to say, well, they think it's natural, but Sage Wool is another one. Hopefully, it lets me save this one.
What do you think
Sage,
of Devil's Tower in Wyoming? Do you think that might be something else?
um, it's possible. I know the Earthers, like, they get into that, like they're trying to say it's a giant tree stump or something. This is
Hmm.
another shot of a wall in Montana. And these are
Wow.
ancient walls, and it goes under the dirt. So some type
Under.
of yeah, so some type of mudslide buried this wall up to that point.
Look at
So,
that.
so it
That has
goes
to
so
be a flood. Has to be a flood.
some type of flood because we know the Missoula floods existed. So we're seeing this is in Montana, and then we're
Hmm.
seeing this in Siberia, and they're
Hmm.
trying to say, well, they're natural formation, and it's like, come on, man, come on, that White Heat says one can only imagine. Yeah, the Vatican, Smithsonian lifted unbelievable structures. Yeah, what they lifted from these structures are like just another level of they're hiding the history. And then when evolutionists say, oh no, we're everything, we know this much, it's like, what do you mean? They're hiding evidence. They're not. This should be like front news, but of course the news is not meant to teach us.
Right.
So they
But
call
it's
it.
crazy how so much evidence for a flood, but they won't accept it. But they will accept something that has barely any evidence. But they just,
Oh,
what I mean? Bones. That's it.
yeah, if they find a skull, forget it. They're making an entire uh if they find a skull, they're making a whole model of and
Yeah,
a whole civilization out of that skull, of saying,
that's
oh,
right.
it walked out of Africa and it did this and then it procreated.
Oh, you don't
Sure.
even know how it felt, what was going through its head. I swear they talk like that. Oh, the cell 18 million years ago was doing this. It's like, wow, you know what it was doing, what it
Yeah.
was thinking? That's incredible. That's how far they'll go with this nonsense.
Yeah, it really, it's just like, yeah, it's to a point where, you know, some of it, when I look at these things, they're very, very odd. And I have to really figure out, like, okay, is this like, who took these images? Because I hear what they're saying about wanting to know more, and sometimes they can stretch it. Like this picture here, I don't
Mhm.
know. like they're saying this is from Montana from the sky, right? The
Hmm.
top of the mountain. And this is an odd picture. I got to look into this. This picture is very odd.
That
It,
is odd.
yeah, so it's like, and there's other pictures like this that I would really like to look
Yeah, it looks
into.
like a woman lying down, doesn't it?
Some,
A
yeah,
woman lying with her
yeah,
head down and the breasts and everything.
some, yeah, it's
And
very
look at the feet. Look at the feet. The
yes, the
knees.
feet,
It's so
and it makes me
distinct.
wonder, could it be? I'd like to find another picture of this to say, okay,
Wow.
where exactly, yeah, and then when we add that to these pictures with the walls, because the walls you can't deny. I mean, you
Mhm.
look at the
It's a
dirt,
wall.
the bottom of it, and you can see, oh yeah, this wall goes deeper. So the
And how can an
land,
evolutionist say it happened naturally? Come on, it's just they're so stupid. I mean,
yeah,
it,
they're ignorant to the point where it's
yeah,
like, you look at it like, come on, man, that picture of the lady, I'm trying to trace it back. It does come from Instagram, and they got
yeah.
a
What
whole
is that?
bunch of others. It could, I don't,
Yeah, and this is why I come here because I never would have known about that picture unless you showed
wow,
it to me. You see what
wow,
I'm saying? I come here to learn.
yeah,
You
man,
know?
thanks,
I
man.
never knew that.
I definitely, I want to look up Devil's Tower now that you said that, because I do have questions about that. I mean, it's
Hmm.
very odd. It's, let's see
The
if I
fact
can.
that Spielberg would put it in his movie, it's not by chance. It has to be some type, something's behind that.
Yeah, it's very odd. I mean, when I think about it, I'm trying to get some better pictures of it to get like a close up of it. Uh, I mean, the rock formation, I could see how it could happen. Uh, Petrification does form some very odd things. Um, but this is Devil's Tower Wikipedia, so we're clear on the
Mhm.
picture. And it makes me wonder. Michelle Gibson has a channel, and she gets really deep into what she calls the roots of giant trees could be what the highways are built upon, that they call roots, the routes. And,
Mm.
like Route I-95 or something, Uh,
Mhm.
so it's really a lot to look into. It's to say, okay, I gotta look deep into this, and definitely the stuff that Alexis was saying about the World War II, the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Um, and they do call it's funny because they have one Devil's Tower, the world's largest petrified tree. So I can understand somebody trying to put that together. It's a possibility. I mean, the thing is that they do come up with the root system. I'm trying to see if I can pull up this is one here. And this is speculative. We're just looking at it. Like,
Sure.
this Devil's Tower one where they're saying, is it the largest petrified tree? So we're seeing, I don't know how they get the root system like
Mhm.
that. It's hard to see, but the little in that bottom right picture, the little top part, like the straight line at the very top of the picture, shows like the little peak, I guess, of Devil's uh, Tower. But then underneath, I guess the artist rendition is all of the roots of. I don't know if that's how that was made. Is it made from radiometric stuff? You know, Radio waves under the surface. Just yeah, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, who knows? I mean, but we do know that this stuff in Montana is looking definitely like a wall, like
What's
like
the official? What do they say is officially? What do they say?
the Montana. Let me see. Um,
Just curious what
where did
excuse they give for it.
Yeah, no, it definitely. Trying to see where I had that picture, because it was a Wikipedia page too that had it. The wiki page should show a little more. Um, Sage Mountain, Reddit. Hmm. I thought I had it just recently. Uh, hmm. Where was that? Because that was. Let me see. Was it this? This picture was wiki.
Hmm.
Um, I thought the giant megalith one was wiki too. There is a YouTube video on it, and I mean it even gets even more crazy with. I might have to check this out because this one is in Montana, and this one is
Yeah.
just off the Richter scale. This one here, if it's I got to check this out because this one I think is an actual on a YouTube video. But look at this one, man.
Now, where's that located?
They're saying this is Montana too.
And what's the excuse? Like, well, how was that built? What's their version of it?
They're calling it prehistoric megastructure discovered in Montana, USA, Sage Wolf. So, something, copy, paste. It's not actually, here's the link. So that picture comes from a YouTube video actually from
Mhm.
Montana. So that's the link to it right here. So
Oh,
that's the
okay.
link to that picture right there.
They're saying
Um,
some prehistoric something or other.
well, they're trying to say that. They might just say prehistoric wall. I'm looking to see if I can find because I thought one of the pictures I just took was it definitely was from a wiki page, and the wiki page will give like the so-called official,
Hmm.
thing. Let me see. Giant megaliths of Montana. The AI says it's a series of controversial rock formations, notably
Wow.
what we saw, the Sage Wall, Tizer Dolmen is another one of that they call located in the remote mountains of southwestern Montana. While some enthusiasts hypothesize they're ancient man-made structures, oh my goodness, geologists
Enthused.
attribute them to natural erosion within the boulder.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew they would say some nonsense.
You got to be kidding me. And that
Yeah.
one that we showed, Sage Wall, it's 275 feet long.
Hmm.
Linear geological formation. That's what they call it. Holy
Wow.
smokes.
Oh,
Pro-
just time and chaos created
yeah,
this perfectly looking
it's like
wall.
evolution. It's like apes made it or something. They just,
Hmm.
this, I mean,
But
this
the
is,
American Indian, they talk about the star people. So they have it in their oral traditions about this other race of people, you know? Now we're
yeah.
seeing some evidence of it.
And again, they go into the debate. They call it the debate. Instead of the presentation of evidence and the
Mhm.
conversation, it's always the debate. They say the anomalous theory advocates, argues, again, that word, instead of presenting evidence, advocates that the features, such as perfectly straight crack lines, stone channels, and interlocking polygonal shapes could not occur naturally and suggest the site was built by a lost prehistoric civilizations.
Mhm.
And underneath that, they say the geological reality. Geologists largely attribute the megaliths to natural cooling and erosion. So this is
Wow.
this is how they use the largely attribute. So it's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, that's the fuzzy word. What do you mean largely attribute? So it's like largely that means that doesn't mean everything. That means
Right.
most of it, they're saying most of it is due to the natural cooling of Boulder batholith, this
Mhm.
75 million year old granite. So magically they can date this when there's no dating method that can date
Yeah.
something 75 million years. They're just yeah. And it
That's like me
weathers
looking at the skyscraper in New York saying, oh, it just happened naturally. That's the equivalent. That's as scientific as it gets.
exactly. And then they're saying they're saying 75 million year old granite formation naturally weathers into rectangular blocks, jointed
Rides
cracks, and
upon the floor. Sorry.
balanced rocks, creating structures that can closely mimic human architecture, a phenomena known as periodolia. You
Oh,
got
big word, big word. So
uh,
it's got to be true if there's a big word in there. That I have to give it to because they made a big word. It has to be true. You know.
and they're saying that many of these megaliths are located on state land or private property. The Sage Wall is situated on the property of the Sage Mountain Center near Whitehall, and then access to the sites is generally restricted. Once
Once
again,
again,
it's like
I was about
or
to bring that
requires
up.
permission. Guided tours to protect the fragile environment, right? So the
Mhm.
75 millions of years didn't do nothing to it, right? and
No.
landowners' privacy. It's like, wow, holy smokes.
Right there, you just named a ton of evidence to support your position. And an evolutionist would just say, well, no, are you not familiar with periodontally or whatever they call it? You
Yeah.
know, it's just like that's what the evolutionists would say. They use the big word to say it sounds smarter than they really are.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's
That
sad.
they'll bring that up quickly, and it's
Hmm.
very surprising that this doesn't have a Wikipedia.
They're trying to keep it secret.
Yeah, yeah, they're definitely trying to keep it secret. Some of those, when I look at that, it's just like, holy smokes, man. Uh,
Yeah.
White Heat says there's a rock wall in Texas and a strange looking uh, Pikachu Peak in Arizona. Let me look that up. Pikachu um, Peak
And I
Chow.
don't blame the guys who are getting paid because they're getting paid. But the idiots who believe this stuff, it's like, guys, wake up. Stop, dead. Mhm.
Pikachu Peak. Okay, State Park images. Okay, this one is kind of hard. I know what you're saying though. Yeah, this one's a little harder. It could be a peak. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, but anybody can look up that other one on the megalith walls. I mean, this one is kind of like if it's real, I don't even see how this one can even be argued. This one
By
right here.
erosion. They said by erosion that happened.
Yeah, this one, you just this is a tough one here. I can I can understand them trying it with this one, but this one too. This doesn't seem like natural erosion.
No,
You know, they can get a little more with this one, but I'm not too sure. I'm just not too sure. I don't think this is natural. I
I'm
think
sure they restrict it because there's probably underground tunnel system in there too. I
yeah,
bet
yeah,
there's
exactly.
underground
This
city. They
one,
don't want people touching it.
yeah, yeah, they don't want people to find stuff. Yeah, this is looking definitely like some, yeah, there's something else going on when you look at these
Mhm.
formations. It's sad because the evolutionists will not try to think. They'll say, well, they said it's, some type of weathering, instead of saying, well, wait a second, do you really think that this, it's like, come on, man. It's like, are you serious? This one, especially here, this one, I got to find out. I'd have to watch that video that I put the link in. So
Mhm.
uh, maybe I'll watch it tomorrow and see what I could do. Because it's already, yeah, it's almost two. It's like 1:42. But yeah, man, this was a good stream. Dealing with does debating
Definitely.
make us smarter? And we see, yeah, it doesn't make us smarter. It actually keeps us in that perpetual state of childhood, just like the thumbnail suggests. It's like it's just debating. Somebody saying no, they're right. The other one, they bring in your argument. It's like no, it's bringing in evidence so we can have a conversation. No debating. The debating keeps us in a perpetual state of childhood, and we pretty much showed why. So yeah, it just really, yeah. I'll get into some of that later. Mammoth Cave. Let me see real quick.
Yeah,
Mam.
and me and you, we have a lot of disagreements on our philosophical beliefs, but we can have a conversation. You notice that we don't have arguments.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the way we learn. Exactly. That's
Mhm.
the way we learn. Mammoth Cave, I gotta look into that. I'm seeing, okay, it is an underground cave. I don't see nothing yet that, I'd have to check it. But yeah, yeah, we'll get into some of that stuff in the future. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Mr. X, everyone in the chat.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the support, brother Ali. Appreciate it, brother. Always, man. It's yeah, this is it, man. Mass debate and lubricate our brains with wisdom, bro. Definitely, without a doubt, man. Yeah, we see that the conversation is always the higher road than the debate. They do exist, but it beats people up. It only looks for, you know, it only looks to win or lose, not learn. Yeah, news and academia, concealment artists, exactly. They just, the fact that we showed what we saw here, especially with this one, man. I got to look at that. I'm going to check that video just to see how deep that goes in. So I'll have more info on that. Yeah, and we'll tonight, Sunday night, yeah, we'll stream, see what's up, bro. Yeah, everybody, thank you. Take care and have a great night.
Have a good night. Thanks.
All right, take care.